shall we take us in with a little tunage?
Sure.
Some tunage, bruh.
Sure.
Okay. Well, I don't have any ideas, but saying that made me think of the Goofy movie.
True. Troofy.
Troofy movie.
Was that, were you doing Pauly Shore's character in a Goofy movie?
Yes.
Yeah.
Guard this with your life, bruh. And it was like the string cheese. What the stand up?
Are you playing some Powerline?
I'm playing some Powerline, dude.
Oh, yeah.
Shit.
I mean, I feel like this is...
Is Goofy, I realized, did they not, in an extremely Goofy movie, because everyone's like, oh, Goofy's black as a joke, but then I realized, like, in an extremely Goofy movie, doesn't he, like, goes to a disco night and he has, like, an afro?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
Goofy,
Disco night, they go to like a jazz bar.
so Goofy might be a black guy.
He might be a
Goofy's
black
certainly
guy.
a black guy.
I always just
Or-
thought that was, like, a hack bit.
It was just college. Because Goofy went back to college in that movie and ended up as his son's roommate in college.
Right,
Yeah.
that's true.
What is that?
But why would he have an afro?
Because you ever heard of like lesbians until graduation, lugs?
What do you mean?
You know, like there's a lesbian thing where they say like girls that just like make out with girls at like college parties, but they're not like real lesbians. They call them lugs, lesbians until
Where are you
graduation.
going with
So
this?
wait, are you saying that Goofy was black until graduation?
A bug. Yeah.
He was bugs? Hell yeah, dude. Hell yeah, dude. Just doing full black. He's like, look, I know I'm not supposed to do blackface, but I'm gonna do it until I get my degree.
Yeah.
What a fucked up implication.
Gotta get that financial aid, baby.
Once I'm educated, I will no longer be black.
Once I'm trying to get a real job.
Wow, you're right. He's trying to get the FAFSA money.
Yes.
What a fucking fucked up thing to say.
Oh, come on, man. It's Saturday.
It is. It's 1 p.m. on a Saturday.
Yeah, I'm glad we're all having beer right now.
Yes. Oh yeah, dude.
I'm gonna get.
I don't
I'll tell you
think I
what.
had breakfast yet. I had 2 cups of coffee. I had a stale pretzel from Lidl and some grapes from my mom's garden. And
It sounds like breakfast to me.
now I'm having a beer.
The well-balanced breakfast. It's like a weird cereal commercial. It's like a picture of like some half-grown grapes.
This was
A
essentially breakfast in Germany when I was over there.
Oh, dude, European breakfast
It's
is
crazy.
so fucked up.
It's good though.
Is it?
Just like a
Well,
bunch
maybe
of
German's
meats
better.
and cheeses and bread.
I guess I'm thinking of like British breakfast is like those
British
people
breakfast is weird.
It's-
like
it's
the English
like-
breakfast, it's beans
and fish.
and
They have like beans and fish,
they
beans
got
on
good
toast,
potatoes at least.
and then they like drown it in like ketchup and shit. I mean, British people. There's.
They got bangers.
Dude.
They call it little sausages.
I follow this.
Bangers.
I follow this Facebook page. I love the name. It's just pictures of British food, and the Facebook page is called "Why Do Brits Still Eat Like the Germans Are Flying Overhead?" They eat the most disgusting shit you've ever seen.
Yeah, it's something about I don't know, maybe the further south you go, just the better they eat. Because like Greeks, obviously, I would say Italians run shit in terms of like
Definitely.
cuisine.
For sure.
Like they have the most universally loved, like just best cuisine. But yeah, like Spain, they have good shit. France, honestly, I think France is overrated. I think France is very okay with cuisine. Like they're very much like they're good for like brunch. Like all their shit
Yeah.
is brunch.
Cafe food in France is good, but
Yeah,
I've
or like
never.
bakery things.
It's
Bakery
all
shit.
very okay when I go to a cafe. I've
No,
never had
France
French
is
food. I'm
basically
like,
just like European Paula Deen as a country.
Yes.
It's just everything is just like butter.
Yes.
Butter.
Yeah.
Butter.
You're right.
What the best French has to offer is like Creole. Like New Orleans food is amazing. I
Yeah,
love.
I mean they stole that from the black people.
Yeah, I
when
don't
they
know if I would
took
say.
over.
I don't know if I'd say that's French. I would say that's definitely more like
Yeah.
soul food.
French are at their best when they're stealing from other people. I would say.
True.
When left to their own
That's fair.
devices, it's like, dude, you just made a piece of bread. You made a piece of bread.
Yeah, you made bread, and your secret technique was putting water in the oven so it steamed up.
I didn't even know that. I thought they just
Is that
put
what
it
the
in
French
a bag.
do?
That's how they get the crispy crust on baguettes and shit.
I will tell you. I mean,
They'll
I
literally
might.
just throw ice in the oven.
Wait, that's all you have to do? Because I did learn that like if you put, I just learned this shit. I learned it from like my girlfriend follows all of these like Asian like food people on Instagram, and they're like,
Does she follow the one where it's like done and dusted?
No, I don't know what that is.
There's like an Asian guy who's always like doing recipes, and he's like, 1 cup of water from Mississippi River, 2 large cucumbers, rice wine vinegar,
3 cups
done
Chicago.
and dusted.
Done and dusted. I like
His
that.
catchphrase after every recipe.
I love that.
I'm gonna start. Well, but what this chick she follows is like put an ice cube in the center of anything you cook in the microwave, and it doesn't get that like soggy, soft microwave feeling to it. It cooks because the whatever it is, like the humidity or the moisture in there, it redistributes the way the food is.
I was gonna say that's
whatever.
counterintuitive. I feel like it would make it more soggy.
Well, the other thing that's crazy is the ice cube doesn't melt. So like you could put an ice cube in the microwave for 2 minutes on high. The ice cube will not melt. When you take it out, the ice cube's still on it, but your food is also like reheated in a way that isn't as fucked up.
Interesting.
We've been doing it. It works like crazy.
Wow.
What are you cooking in the microwave?
Well, it's great if you put it in the center of
cubes.
like rice. Yeah, I'm cooking a plate of ice cubes. Let me get those ice cubes heated, please.
Because I know, like the way a microwave works is it charges the water molecules in the food,
Right.
and makes it like, I guess the friction of everything bouncing around heats it up.
Yeah, it's the actual they're moving faster, right? Like
Yeah.
some shit. Like here's my thing with microwaves. There's no how the fuck like of all the things that they're like you have to be careful of giving you cancer. There's no way microwaves are safe.
No.
Yeah.
They seem like
Can't be.
blatantly like they shouldn't be in your house.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, that's got to be the first thing to go.
It has to be.
Air fryers are the new microwave anyway.
Air fryers are
Air fryer, I feel like that's more unsafe than a microwave.
you think so?
Because it's just like coils of whatever the fuck that's blowing that hot air all over your food.
But is it radiation?
It's
like a
not
microwave's like
radiation.
explicitly radiation, isn't it?
Yeah.
Maybe. I don't know.
I feel
Microwave
like
is definitely just radiation.
Yeah, it is.
Like it's definitely that.
It's got waves in the name.
It's literally
It's shooting waves, dude.
Yeah, no, the air fryer, dude. I have never had my own air fryer, but I have had a lot of roommates who have, and there's nothing like using your roommate's air fryer when they're gone for the weekend. There's nothing like just burning
like it.
cheese. There's nothing like ruining your roommate's air fryer. And then he comes back and he's just sending pictures to the group chat like, who the fuck did this to my air fryer? And it's like, I don't know, man. That's crazy.
ice cubes in my air fryer?
There's nothing. My old roommate Isaac, we had this roommate that we hated, and we would put paninis in the air fryer, and we would not clean it on purpose until there was just like this crazy like 3 layers of film of like cheese and like
Yeah.
ham particles.
Yeah.
It's so funny.
I cleaned my microwave the other day. It was insane. It was truly insane.
Yeah, microwaves, they just get a filth.
Yeah.
to 'em.
well, cause shit, like there are tiny explosions. Like you'll open a microwave and just be like, "What the fuck shot up onto the top?"
I don't even
Yeah.
I don't even consider my food done until something has exploded inside the microwave. I'm like, okay, it's almost done.
You have to hear the pop. you have to hear like you. It's the only time a ham sandwich will start popping loudly while you're cooking it.
Yeah, it's insane that we eat shit out of the microwave so much when it sounds like that.
That should be on
It
the
sounds
back.
like
I know,
something
it's-
dying.
It should be on the back of every microwave instruction, like heat on high until something seems wrong,
It's like
and then take out.
like nothing that crazy should be happening after 40 seconds of cooking. If like that is, dude, I was too lazy to make grilled cheese the other day, so I just like toasted 2 pieces. I'm so shitty. I'm in my grandmother's house. I toasted 2 pieces of toast, got 2 little slices of cheese. I put it on a paper plate. I put it in the microwave for, I'm not kidding, 20 seconds, and it exploded. It shot all over the sides of the microwave. Like it was way too fucking much. How could that be possible for 20 seconds of cooking something?
I don't know.
It's
I mean,
preposterous.
I
It's
think
like how hot,
everyone
like-
should do the experiment where you put a empty bag of chips in the microwave for like 15 seconds and it shrinks to like a little shrinky dink.
Oh yeah.
Like that's not healthy.
There's no way you like how like
You
literally.
put a marshmallow in the microwave and it looks like the fucking Michelin Man after 5 seconds. That's not healthy.
My favorite thing about a microwave doesn't even tell you how hot it is. Like a microwave settings are low, medium, and high. There's no temperature measurement.
Yeah, if you like set the temperature on the microwave, it's like, all right, press one of the numbers on the keypad. What does that correlate
you
to?
can have 10. Yeah, like I would be willing to bet like a microwave is probably like 1,000 degrees when you turn it on. Nobody knows what the fuck it is.
I personally never use anything below 5. I don't know what the other numbers do.
I go crazy on the mic. I don't like if you're not cooking anything.
If
I
you're
don't
not
think I've
cooking
ever
for 30 seconds at a 9, you're not living.
Yeah, like no, really. Who's setting the microwave to low and being like, I'll cook this for 10 minutes in the microwave?
Yeah,
that
I
defeats the purpose of the microwave.
Boil it at that
Unless
point.
you're defrosting, I guess.
What's the most white trash thing you guys have ever cooked in the microwave? Because you can cook anything in there.
Yeah. Let me think. I mean, definitely like s'mores. I've done the s'more in the microwave. That's kind of white trash.
S'mores is understandable. I at my lowest, I was I was getting small cuts of steak.
Oh no.
And seasoning them and just nuking them for like 2 minutes. And it became this thing in my house right now. Our oven doesn't work and the stove is very dicey and like it's really nobody ever cleans the pans. And I was just like, I mean, a microwave does cook stuff all the way through. And I got into the very like bad habit of of cooking scrambled eggs in the microwave.
Oh my god.
Just like putting them in a
That's
little bowl.
totally a thing. That's
It's
totally a
totally.
thing.
It's a. I looked it up. I made sure like there are recipes for
Yeah,
cooking
for
eggs in
sure.
the microwave.
What's funny is that I'm pretty sure microwaves cook things from the inside out. So when you're doing a steak, you're like doing a reverse medium rare. It's like
you're
well done
reverse
on the
searing
inside.
it.
It's
Yes.
well done on the inside and raw on the outside.
Literally,
Yes.
the color of steak when you put the steak in the microwave for a minute and 30 seconds, it is fully cooked. It is also it's gray. It's like a shade of gray that food should not be, but you can fucking eat it. You can totally eat it.
It's not raw.
It's not. I know. You can eat steak raw. Is the other thing. Like steak is a pretty safe meat.
Yeah, people
You
do
just
that.
gotta cut the outside off if you're eating it raw.
Yeah, they
You
get
gotta,
it.
you gotta
You do?
remove. Well, you don't have to if it's like sushi grade or whatever the fuck you want
Right.
to call it. But like, the problem with meat is whatever surface is exposed. That's when you dry age meat, you have to carve off like the layer of the outside of the meat because
the
it
truth
gets
about
fucked up.
meat.
I did not know that.
Yeah.
Yeah, because people do steak tartare and stuff like that. You can get that, like the raw steak on the crackers and shit.
Yeah, I've had
People
that.
do that, like even with ground beef. Yeah, all you got really have
Well,
to do is
that's
get the
ground beef
outside.
is dicey because it's not the same. I do know this because ground
Yeah.
beef is not the same cut of meat and it's all mixed together. That's why you should never order a hamburger like any type of rare.
Yeah,
because there's
yeah.
a chance
Unless
you
it's
make
from
it.
like a good restaurant.
Well, what it is
Sure.
it's really beef is it's different than chicken. Chicken is a less dense meat, and so all the bacteria that gets on the outside of the cut goes all the way through, which is why you have to cook it all the way through. Steak,
yeah.
all the like salmonella or E. coli or whatever the hell you're worried about, can only penetrate the outer layer of the steak. So as long as you cook the outer layer of the steak, the inside is generally safe to eat. Which is why
makes sense.
which is why with ground beef it's different because you're actually grinding all of it in throughout the entire thing. So you got to cook it all the way through.
So hold up, wait. This is my question though, because I feel like fish is even less dense than chicken. It's very flaky, but fish is like there's all kinds of raw fish that you can eat.
Yeah, but I think that's because you're eating the fish like
Yeah.
the same day.
And then also like raw fish, it has to be wild caught. It can't be from a farm because like that's where most of like sick fish come from.
Right, 'cause
they're
of all
just,
the
like, swimming
runoff.
around and poop and shit.
Yeah.
But like I think for sushi grade fish, it has to be wild caught and then also like extremely fresh.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't know much about the fish situation.
Yeah, I don't eat fish like that, to be
I
honest.
love fish, dude.
I
don't
like,
like
I
raw
like
fish?
shrimp.
You like shrimps?
I like shrimps. I
You
like
like little
crab.
crawdads?
I'm moving
I do
away
like
from
crawdads.
I'm
I
moving
feel like
away from
crawdads are a
shrimp.
jip. I feel like crawdads typically cost more than shrimp, and you get way less meat.
Oh
than
yeah,
shrimp.
you only get
It's
the
like
tail.
it's just like little mini lobsters, but little crawdad with some sausage, dude. Yummy.
That is good.
Little Cajun meal.
Oh yeah. Hey, live from the studio here, guys.
Is that the longest cold open you've ever done?
I think so, yeah.
Live from New York.
I've never done a professional podcast where we've had any kind of intro or any kind of like. I don't even introduce the guests on my podcast.
I'm Jimmy Selesky,
Merrick Glazer.
and we're here with our good old friend Nick with no C Oldershaw.
What's up, guys?
LA boy, you're here for
up?
quite some time, aren't you? This year?
Kind of. I'm on the East Coast for some time. I was in Chicago, and then I'm going to be in Pennsylvania next week, and then I'm going to be in New York, and then I'll be in Maryland from like the 24th to October 10th, and then I go back.
Hell yeah.
Yeah.
It's getting a little, it's getting a little weird out on the West Coast. So Nick had to soak up some East Coast vibes.
I literally, I didn't realize how bad I needed it, but I'm like, oh, like LA is so weird. I am so happy to be taking a break. I'm glad that I'm like in a place where I can take a break this long. But yeah, it's weird. I'm kind of not looking forward to going back.
What's going on with LA? Is it on fire right now? Is there energy shortage? I've been hearing so many different things about the West Coast.
Well,
what's the big thing?
There's post-COVID, everything's kind of sucked. It feels like most of my a lot of my friends left. Like a lot of the people I was really, like some of my, like Isaac and Daniel are still there, the guys I do the podcast with. A lot of my friends left. Production stuff got weird. That's finally starting to open back up. Comedy's in a weird place out there.
Yeah.
But as far as like the power outages, yeah, like the whole power grid was like, apparently in my house, the power was off for like a week or something, and temperatures were like, my house is like an oven. It was built in like the 30s, and it traps heat. So like inside my house, it was like 110 degrees, and we have
That's what my oven's like too.
Yeah,
It like never turns off. It has like pilot lights for all of the burners that are always on.
Right.
And they're like big flames.
Yeah.
That's old school.
So that's my whole, and I've got like we don't have any central air or anything because it's so old. And I have like an AC unit. It's so fucked. All our windows open sideways, so you can't put a window unit in them. So I have like a freestanding AC unit that has like a hose that goes into the window.
Yeah.
And then it just like pumps air into my room. But yeah, so like the LA power grid's under stress. Apparently now there's risk for like flooding because there's like a huge storm coming.
Jesus.
And like the city doesn't have
slides and shit.
Yeah,
it
doesn't have the
rowdy
infrastructure
and
for
shit.
that.
Yeah, Jesus.
And I guess now we're like, because of like changing weather patterns, we're at risk for like tropical storms and hurricanes now, which we also don't have the infrastructure for. So it's getting pretty fucking weird out there.
See, it's good to talk to somebody that actually lives out there because, like, I always take everything I hear on the news with a grain of salt. Obviously, if you listen to the news, they're like, LA is going down. I'm like, is it really? It is going down?
Yeah, the homeless problem's pretty bad too. It's kind of crazy.
Now, that I did notice when I was out there like a couple years ago. It was, because I had gone out there when I was like 19, which would have been like, that's at that time it had been 10 years prior. And I went out again when I was like 28. And it was just,
and at 19,
palpable.
You went out as a homeless
man. I was like when
you were part of the population.
When I flew to LA, the homeless ticker went up too. Me and Scott, it was like homeless population.
When I was homeless, when I was talking about flying and being homeless, when I was homeless in LA, I was homeless for like 6 months living in my car, and like, I never did this, but I was like, I literally could do this, because hotel, like to spend a night in the hotel just to like not be in my car was so expensive, but I could have literally gotten on like a Spirit Airlines flight for like $60 or $70, and I was like, should I just like fly to like Arizona and then like just sleep in the airport for a couple days, get something to eat, and then fly back to Los Angeles just so I don't have to be in my car?
Yeah,
and I never did it, but I
guess you could even just get a flight, check in at LAX, and just chill there. And if anyone asks, like, yeah, I got a delay.
Layover.
Yeah, they canceled my
4-week
flight.
layover, dude. It's funny because when I was out there, like we were talking about, I was homeless for like that week, and you've been homeless, but it's almost like a state of mind, because even when I don't have a home, I'm never homeless in my mind. Like I'm just a guy that doesn't currently have a home.
Oh,
not
dude,
homeless.
Dude, it's so funny. I was like the way I should have more empathy, and I try to have empathy for homeless people, because I'm like, it's so shitty to like be annoyed by these people when I was like in the same spot. But I remember
you had a car.
I had a car that was like, that car was a piece of shit too. But I remember just like sitting in my car at like 1 p.m. and I was homeless in the summer too, which really sucked.
Yeah.
Just like blasting my AC, which apparently, like, if you just sit in the car with it running, blasting it with the windows up, you're like inhaling like secondhand carbon monoxide. It's like really bad for your brain. Great. Like comes in through the AC apparently.
Jesus.
And I remember I would just be like sitting in my car, just like sweating just sitting in my car in my underwear, no clothes on because it's so hot, just like clearly like at the end of my rope,
Sitting there, just like, I'm not homeless. I'm not homeless.
I was like
sitting in my car in my underwear.
I was like,
breathing CO2.
I was like, this is a speed bump. I was like, we will get over this. I remember, dude, one time I was so desperate for money. I mean, when I was home, I was so desperate to have money. I was selling plasma to make money, and I would have to, because my car would run out of gas. So I had to get like plasma money for gas. And the plasma center,
Well, you get the cookies they give you for lunch, and then
oh, they don't even do that anymore.
Really?
They don't, and it would be hard because I hadn't eaten, and if you don't eat, your levels can be off. So like, this is how like nerve-wracking it was, because like I would not have eaten. My car needed gas. You could only donate plasma twice a week, and I was in Burbank, and the plasma donation center was in Van Nuys, about 8 miles away from where my car was parked.
yeah.
Maybe, like,
So you had to get like a payday loan to get gas for your car, go donate plasma, and then pay it back real quick.
Worse. I would walk 4 to 5 hours to donate plasma. I would literally walk like 8 to 9 miles to go donate plasma. Pray that my levels wouldn't be fucked up, because if they are, then I have to walk back.
Yeah.
Holy shit.
And donating plasma, especially because I was like dehydrated, at that point it takes like 2 hours. I have scars on my arm that will never go away from how many times I donated plasma. You can
Oh
see
my
it.
God.
You can see them right there.
Now, how much money do you get per plas?
I mean, like, so for the first few of the month, you get like 100, 175, and then it gradually goes down to like 50. And then I think towards the end, you get like 35, and it resets every month. So I'd be walking away with anywhere from like 100 to 30, $40. And so I would donate plasma, and then I would make the trek back to my car and put like $10 of gas into it, so I could like go
God.
drive somewhere else.
And all this seemed like a better move than just like being a busboy somewhere.
Yeah, I really hate working in restaurants. I really do not like working in restaurants. Also, I was like completely I needed to I was totally unpresentable. I like couldn't. I remember like one time, dude, I needed money so bad. I went to I went to like a pawn shop, and I tried to sell them my like knockoff Bluetooth headphones for my iPhone, and the guy was like, "Get the fuck out of my." She's like, "What the fuck are you doing? Get out of here!" I'm like, "This has to be worth like $5." Dude, it was so bad.
Oh my God.
Yeah, it
And
was
that was
bad.
for 6 months you were in that position?
I was in that position for about 6 months. And sometimes I'd crash on friends' couches and stuff, and like I would crash with like some friends in East LA. I would crash. Sometimes I would like spend the night at my friend's place in Burbank, but like I was supposed to leave in the morning, but they would all leave and I would pretend to be asleep, and then like I would hang out longer than I was supposed to. But then like one morning there was one guy was still there, and it was the guy who didn't like me staying there, like the guy who was not my friend. So I heard him coming downstairs, and I just like ran into the bathroom downstairs. And I was just like, dude, I was just like creeping around like Solid Snake, like hiding behind walls and like hiding in the stairwell, waiting for him to leave, so I could just like sleep on the couch for another 3 hours.
Oh my God.
That was like that must have been like, what year is it now? 2022. I guess that was about like 5 or so years ago. That was like my scumbag era, like the worst I've ever been.
What got you over the hump? I mean, like, how'd you finally break
I did
out of the,
I did a medical study, and I did a medical study, and I
Really put me on my feet.
This man has no plasma. How is he alive?
This is when you're like your brain was leaking, right?
yeah, they did spinal taps on me, and
Yeah. Oh my
but
God.
they paid me $10,000, which literally got me back on my feet. $10,000
shit.
like literally turned my life around.
Yeah.
That's a huge amount of money.
It's a big amount of money.
life-turning amount of money for sure. Yeah, I mean, you could put a down payment on a house with 10,000. I guess I don't know.
Probably.
I feel like you can though.
I think you probably can. I mean, I would have I could put the down payment down on a house, and then like never like that's all I'd
Not
be able to pay
afford
for that
a
house.
mortgage. Yeah.
Yeah, but I remember like I was so happy when I got that money, because like I also at some point had like lost the keys to my car. Like I could not get back into my car. So I had this money, and my car, by the way, is just like it's sitting in like on a street in Burbank near like the old apartment where I used to live before I was homeless. And every time I walk by it, there's just like another parking ticket on. There's like
Oh
a
my
flip book of
God.
parking tickets. And
And at that point, you're addicted to CO2 too. So you got to get in there.
and I didn't know where the keys were. I like literally couldn't find the keys. And I was like, well, that's just not my car anymore. And I was like, I was like, I'm gonna let nature take the. And like, sure enough, one day I walked by and my car was gone. It lifted itself like the Lorax. It just disappeared into the woods. And I was like, great, that's awesome, problem solved.
You had like a total loss, but in tickets. Like, this car is now total.
But then but so I was like, awesome. I was like, wow, look, everything, it all worked out. But then like I got a phone call. because I guess like
The Lord works in mysterious ways.
through like the VIN, I should have scratched the VIN number off or something. Because like they got in touch with me somehow. They're like, "Hey, your car's in the impound, and like for every day that it's in the impound and you don't come take care of it, you're gonna be charged like another like $400-$500 a day." So I was like,
Oh my god!
So I had to like go like fucking 30 miles to the impound, and then I was able to like I just sold them like the tag and title to the car because I was like, I don't want like this car is full of too many bad memories. Like I was like sleeping in this car. I like spilled piss in this car because I would have to piss in bottles sometimes.
It's like, don't you guys want this now after I gave you the full fucking Carfax rundown?
And so I was just like, yeah, man, you guys can have the car. And he's like, by the way, this doesn't like, because in Maryland, this is true. This is still true. If you rack up a bunch of tickets on a car and then you scrap it, the history of those tickets doesn't follow you. It literally erases them.
Wow.
I know this because I did it twice. So like I like racked up like all these like parking tickets and shit. And when I scrapped both cars, there was no longer any record of the tickets. And so I was like, great.
Good to know.
I was like,
Are you sure that wasn't just because like the entire Baltimore city like government computer system got hacked?
Oh, that could be true too.
No, I think this was. But when did that happen?
2018.
This was
2019.
time.
This
you
was
got,
in
buddy.
This was before then. This was
Okay,
before I
okay.
moved to Los Angeles. And so I was like, I figure it's probably like the same in Los Angeles, right? So I
Right.
sold them the
More
car.
progressive there, you know.
Yeah. Well, they also like to fuck you out of every dollar you have.
Oh yes.
So I sold him the car, and the guy, like, he must have known what I thought I was doing. He goes, just so you know, this doesn't like, you still got to pay off these tickets. Like, you still owe LA County all this money. And I was like, nah, I don't think I'm gonna do that. I was like, and I've looked it up. I can't find any record of any like tickets I owe.
Ooh.
I'm sure maybe like there's probably like a bench warrant out. Like I'm sure one day I'll just like be arrested.
Yeah, just Dog the Bounty Hunter is gonna knock down your door. I guess he's dead though, right? Didn't he die? Dog
His
the
wife
Bounty? Or no, his
died.
wife died.
His wife
Okay.
died.
Then you're
From having
probably
kids
good.
that were
If
too
Dog
young.
the Bounty
Good.
Hunter's wife is dead, I think you're probably in the clear.
Yeah, she wouldn't get me.
Yeah.
I mean, if you think about it, it sounds ridiculous, but at the same time, it kind of makes sense. It's like, okay, dude, like, I clearly was racking up a lot of tickets with this car. Now this car no longer exists.
Right.
So, like,
What is it? What are these tickets tied to?
Yeah.
You like you can't you literally like can't prove it. Like
yeah, you can't prove this car ever existed.
yeah, it's but yeah, I don't know. I like I haven't been able to find. And same thing happened to my friend Sean. Sean, who lived with me in LA for like 8 months, he racked up a fuckload of parking tickets and never paid them off. And he's like, I can't find any record of them. So maybe I don't know how that works.
Well, that's one of the benefits of being like off the grid kind of too. Because like if you don't have money, I've always thought about this. Like if you don't have money, then like what can they really do to you? Like if they charge you a whole bunch of shit and you're like, I don't have that.
Oh, dude,
You know?
I was just extolling this virtue on Thought Cops in Chicago last week.
Great word.
If you've ever paid off, like paying off debt is a scam. Number one, it fucks your credit score up. Number two, if it's medical debt, don't ever pay that off. Never pay it off. You cannot. It cannot impact your credit score. You can't get sent to jail for it. They can just dog you and just give them like a Google Voice number because it legally is not like technically we have free healthcare in this country. Like war is over if you want it, dude. Like it's
Yeah.
real. Like I mean, the only stipulation is like you have to go to the emergency room. You have to like I guess you have cancer. You have to wait till it gets really bad and then just like show up at the emergency room.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Be like, please do something right now.
So what you're saying, there are downsides to this method.
Of course, there are downsides, but
Yeah.
you don't have to pay off medical.
Well, and also
debt.
like hospital systems are still like the police were in like the 70s and 80s, where like they just don't talk to each other
at all.
at all.
Dude, that was one of the craziest things. I'm sorry, I feel like I'm jumping all over the place, but I learned that, and I'll shut up after this. I learned that after watching. Did you watch that that documentary about that girl Gypsy Rose? The girl who was like her mother. She had like Munchausen syndrome or something. Her mother was like continually making her be sick or seem sick.
Oh,
So
I
that
kept
she
seeing the
needed it.
trailers and shit for that.
Well, they did
It's
a
like
Hulu.
a Hulu show.
Well,
yeah.
there was a documentary before the Hulu show, Because
Great
her
porn name, by the way, Gypsy Rose.
Gypsy Rose
That's what I
and
thought
her
we were
boyfriend
going
Nik Oldershaw, and they conspired to
Ooh.
dude. They would draw themselves as anime characters and talk about how they were each other's like eternal prince and princesses, and she would like send these long Facebook messages. She's like, "Lover, you're making my dark side come out again," which culminated in her murdering her mother. But the way her mother got her to be sick all the time is like she would get the doctors to like diagnose her with all this stuff, and none of the hospitals ever talked to each other. So every time they would move and go to a new doctor, she would have all this paperwork that was based on nothing, that detailed all these diseases that her daughter had, and the doctors at the next physician, pediatrician
Yeah,
hospital,
just had
whatever,
to take their word for
they
it.
literally, and they're like, okay, well, we're gonna act as though if this is the information we have, we're gonna act on it and prescribe her all this
Fucking
shit.
hell.
It's so bad.
What is that though? Like that whole like, because that is such a thing, the Munchausen syndrome, which is of course, I believe that's when like it's a mother thing when like they want to perpetually either is it keep their kids sick, or is it pretend they're sick? Because I always thought it was like legitimate. Like if you ever seen the movie, you've seen The Sixth Sense, right?
Yes.
And that was kind of that situation where like one of the ghosts was a girl. Great movie, by the way. I watched it the other day.
Oh, yeah.
I'm totally throwing that in my little October Horror Fest marathon at my house. But like the girl was like being fed poison in her soup every day, and she was like trying to find a way to tell or whatever. But like I always wondered like what fucking is that? Like what does she get out of it? Is she
It's like they're addicted to like taking care of someone and having someone rely on them.
That's exactly what it
You
is.
know?
And it can be a combination. Sometimes like they're actually poisoning them. Sometimes they're just telling them that they're sick. It's
well,
kind
it's
of
like that's what like the Bubble Boy movie was about, right? Like his mom
yeah.
was like, "You got to be in a bubble. You're gonna die if you get out of that bubble." And then he gets out of the bubble and he's like, "Oh no, I'm fine."
man, it's so funny to sentence your son to being in a bubble.
Yeah,
dude, we went to school. I don't want to say his full name, but his name was Paul. And he, I'm convinced he grew up. We went to like scouts together and stuff like that. I'm convinced that his mom kind of like made him the way he was, because his mom was like a child psychologist, and like I don't know, there's a certain thing where like he was in vitro, I think, like it was like an artificial insemination thing, so like she had him, there was no father in the picture, and like
and you know what? He couldn't write, and was that the only thing wrong with him?
he couldn't write.
Like had bad handwriting.
Yeah, exactly. It was like, well, I don't know. He's 5. I don't think this is a disease.
Yeah, it doesn't mean he typed everything up until senior year.
I know. He just walked around with a fucking computer. Like
Yeah.
I was like, what the? It was just
Dude,
like
that's me right now. Honestly, I've like, have you tried to write recently? Not
Oh
on
yeah,
the-
every
it's
time I
nuts.
have to like write a check for rent, I'm like, can I still do this?
all right, focus.
What's cursive again?
Dude, I was trying to write my girlfriend like a note, like a sweet note, like just well, yeah, we're trying to like do sweet stuff for each other, like
Yeah,
leave each
yeah.
other notes and stuff. And I was like, God, I was like, every single one of my letters looks completely different.
Yeah, this looks
don't
like
know.
a ransom letter.
Yeah, it looks like I don't think they could ever get me in court. They could never nail my handwriting because it's so inconsistent.
Oh,
It
yeah.
looks like a different person drew every letter.
Yeah, not a single one of my signatures has ever matched. Like I'm like I like literally I can't do it. I can't
Yeah.
do it.
Oh yeah, my signature is more like it's kind of cool. It's more like a symbol, honestly.
I'll like forget letters in my signature sometime, and I'll have to like go back over with like another line.
Can I get another one of those, please?
Like my signature might as well, like in a car, my signature might as well be just like a paw print, like in like a fucking Disney movie, just like an inked paw print on the end of a fucking contract.
Yeah, handwriting is definitely a dying art, and it's weird because handwriting is such an interesting thing. I've always found it fascinating how you can always tell a girl's handwriting from a guy's handwriting, and like
yeah.
I've never understood like they have like handwriting analysts that can like tell things about you as a person based off of that type of things, which I've always found like kind of fascinating, but it's a dying thing now.
Like they can tell if you're I think there's a way to tell if you have big loops, you're like a psychopath or a sociopath or something,
or a chick. I mean,
Or a
chicks
or a
love
chick. Well, exactly.
dot your eyes with hearts.
You're a slut.
That is so funny to like look at a piece of handwriting. It's like, well, he's either evil and crazy or a girl.
I just have always found that weird, and it's like, like we grew up on the cusp of like, we were still taught cursive in school, but I said cursive like I'm Irish.
Cursive. Yeah, I'll be writing in cursive before.
Fuck the queen.
Fuck the queen.
That dead bat.
But like, I don't think that kids really. I mean, like even now, it's like you sign shit. It's like just click here. I'm like, sometimes I'm online and they'll like send me like important legal documents or like click here to sign. I'm like,
Wait, that's a signature
anybody can
now.
do that.
Yeah.
Or like write it with your mouse pen. I'm like,
Yeah.
Well, I mean, here's the thing. The idea of a signature is like is meaningless because even
Pretty
though
much.
it's you signing it, it's like it's how many. I had friends who forge signatures all the time.
Oh, yeah.
To imitate their parents. I guess like if it becomes a legal matter, that's when you can bring an expert in. But that still seems dubious to me.
Exactly.
You know.
Especially when you're signing a lease, and it's like nobody, including me, knows what my signature looks like. You know,
should just have like the way that should work is like anything official you sign, there should be like video or photographic evidence of it.
yeah.
Like, that should just be standard.
I guess that's what like a notary is, right?
Yeah, I
you
guess
need
that
like
is
a
what that
notary
is.
for like super official shit.
Right. Notaries are fucking annoying as shit too, though.
But that still bugs me that that's a job. It's just someone's like, yeah, I get paid to also be there when people sign shit, and then I sign it.
I mean, that's
Yeah.
a great job if you think about it.
No, it's a great job if you like sneak your way into it, but
Right.
anytime I have to like pay for a notary to authorize shit, I'm pissed off.
I've never done. The other day, Liv actually, my girlfriend Liv, her car was towed in Miami. She's living down in Miami temporarily, and they towed her car, but it's registered in her dad's name. And she tried to go pick it up, and they were like, "We can't release this car to you."
Right.
And she was like, "Well, you know, what if my dad calls? You know, blah 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 blah," and like gives you all this information. They're like, "No, like the only way is you have to like overnight a notarized written letter from him authorizing the release of this car to you."
Oh my God.
So like that was my first. And I was like, so he has to go to like a lawyer. Like how? And she was like, no, you can go to like a library. You can
Yeah.
like. And I've never notarized anything. I don't know what it is. I've never
There's
done
a notary
anything like
public on like York Road right over there.
I mean, what a business if you think about it. It's like get a wax stamp, and then you just show up. You're like, yeah, I saw that.
Boom.
Send it. That'll be
Yeah.
$80, please.
Damn, you're right. I should start notary. I should just become a notary.
I think
Just
that's
say
a-
you're a notary.
I might be a notary, honestly.
Who's gonna really check the wax stamp?
I bet you could do like you could get recognized as a notary public, just like you can get your like pastor's license to marry people online. You know what I mean? It's probably like
Right.
$50, and you watch like some YouTube videos.
That seems way better than like doing like chat desk or whatever the fuck the
It
side
just
hustle
seems
is.
there's certain things like in this day and age that still amaze me that still exists. Like honestly, whenever I have to deal with anything that's still dealt with primarily over like physical mail, I'm dumbfounded at the fact that that exists. Like I had to dispute a charge on my credit card in New York City, which now that I look back on, I'm pretty sure I did it and was just drunk. But like regardless, I like called him up and I was like, and again, it really tunes you into like how they say shit works and how it really works. Like everybody kind of goes along in their day to day going like, yeah, like if somebody steals my card and makes a charge, like I'll get that back. And then it's like, oh wait, actually no. What happens is you call them up and they're like, yeah, we can't really prove that it wasn't you, so no. And I'm like, well, did you look? And they're like, I don't know, you gotta like mail us a letter.
Yeah.
And literally they only dealt with it in paper mail, and like so much of that shit is like made purposefully tedious. So that like if you have like a $50 charge and it's like, okay, so here's what you gotta do. You gotta mail us this, this, and this, wait about 2 to 3 weeks, we'll mail you back our results, and if you want to dispute those results, then it's all dealt with in paper mail. And at a certain point, they're just kind of banking on the average person just being like, dude,
Fuck
it's
it.
$50 fucking dollars. Like, literally the other night, I had I was playing at the Horse, and it was really ironic because so like this guy had just bought me a shot at the Horse. They were from Kentucky or whatever. It was this big private party in the back, and he was like, they were all in suits and stuff, like lawyery insurance guys, and he goes outside and somebody stops me mid set towards the end of the night. They're like, dude, some dude just fell on your car and like left a huge fucking dent because I had
What the
parked right out
fuck?
front. I come outside and this guy is just like sitting on the sidewalk, just like, and there's a big dent in my car. And like, I'm sitting there going like, you know, this guy's wasted. He's incoherent. And like, what was super ironic is it was a car insurance convention. Like, it was peak irony. Like all these guys that work for all these car insurance companies, and then they fuck up my car. I'm like, this is unreal. So like, I'm trying to get this guy's information, and it's like, at a certain point, it becomes impossible because it's like, I got his name, and then thankfully the other guy that was with him was like, all right, here's what you do. Like, here's his name, here's his blah, 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 blah. And like, you know, so I like text him to get his information. He doesn't respond. And it's like, I call up my insurance company, like, yeah, you got $100 deductible. It was like $800 of damage. So I got to pay $100. And I'm like, at a certain point, I'm like trying to track this guy down just to get so it can go through his insurance, but ultimately it only saves me $100.
Right.
And it's like, at what point does it just become like, all right, what am I gonna fucking like? He's gonna keep dogging me and ignoring me. I've dealt with this in the past. I had a situation when I was at Cheesecake Factory in Taos. It's been like 8-9 years ago, and I was parked in the parking garage, and somebody had. In the spot next to me, just completely knocked off my rearview mirror. And when I came out, I saw my rearview mirror was knocked off, but there was a note from somebody else that saw it. And so that other person that saw it went, oh yeah, like this is the license plate of the guy who did it. Here's my phone number, you know. So I called up insurance. I was like, look, this happened. I have a witness. I have the license plate number, blah, 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 blah. And they're like, okay, great. So they track down the license plate. They call the person. The person just denies it. They're like, yeah, that wasn't me. I didn't do that. And then they're like, okay. So then the police look into it and they're like, yeah. And of course, and it's like this 4-week process where like, they're like, okay, so the cops, and I call up like 3 weeks later. I'm like, so what's the deal? They're like, oh yeah, the police say that the security cameras couldn't see it from any angle. And I was like, isn't that always the case? Literally any fucking time I've ever had to rely on security camera footage, always miraculously, it's just the one spot where no cameras are.
Yeah.
Here's the problem. Even if a security camera does catch it, it's rarely high resolution enough to like confirm the license plate. It's always like 240p.
Well, also the problem with security cameras is businesses aren't putting them up to watch whoever's in their business. They're putting them up to watch their own employees to make sure they're not like stealing shit or fucking off.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
It's just those at those points in life are really when it kind of hits you where you're like, oh, like we kind of just walk around in our day to day assuming like, oh, this system is in place, and if this happens, then I can do this. And then when you actually need to rely on any of that shit, you realize it's all bullshit.
Yeah, it's
like
all fake or for appearances.
Yeah.
Like when our office got robbed at like the old ATB office, they stole like a camera and a bunch of lenses and shit. And there's literally a camera that's pointed at the door where you leave our office. And it was like 40p.
Yeah.
It was like, how do you have a camera this old?
Yeah. It's insane. And it really tunes you in. It's like, it just, anytime I've ever had to deal with that shit, dude, it's always been just a mind-opening experience. Just like, and it's like, this shit happens, and it's like, I'm paying my insurance company like all this money a month, like $170 a month. And I call them up, they're like, and the guy literally on the phone, I was like, look, I have his first and last name. I have the company he works for. And they're like, do you have anything else? I'm like, they were like, do you have his policy number? Do you have this? I was like, look, the guy was wasted. Like, he couldn't even speak. He couldn't even stand. Like, I couldn't really get that information out at the time. I got his number from this person. Like, oh, I mean, I got this, that, the other thing. And they're like, all right, so you need to like find this out, find this. And I'm like, what am I paying? Like at a certain point, it's like,
you fucking
what am I
do that?
paying you for? You know, it's like, I'm paying you guys $170 a month. I've been paying you guys that amount a month for like 4 years. So like, you have thousands upon thousands of dollars, you know, backing on. Also, it's
also
your
such
money.
a bitch because you have to. This is the other frustrating thing is like you also have to have insurance to drive. Like you just have to fucking pay them this money, and they do jack shit for you. There's so many. So how many mandatory services do they tell you that you have to have for your safety and other people's safety that are then you have to jump through these fucking hoops to get anything out of them?
Yeah.
It's unbelievable.
Yeah. It's truly mind-boggling, dude.
Yeah,
so
no.
now it's just like, it's going to cost me $100 to do that. And it's just like, great. I drove down to Fells Point for $150 to play, and now 100 of that is going to pay the fucking dent in my car. It's like a $50 night. It's
And then
like
now
awesome.
your insurance is going to raise too.
Yeah, and now my insurance is going to raise, and it's like
Why the fuck, dude? I don't understand the way credit and insurance works. I don't understand why you get penalized for being
For
responsible
using it.
Exactly.
For using the service you're paying for.
Yeah.
It is such fucking horseshit. And both things that are like semi-mandatory. You literally have to have both to do anything.
Yeah. It's completely fucked.
Oh God, I get so angry.
Yeah, Liv had a situation where she bought a flight and she actually purchased flight insurance for it, so she had to cancel or like post or change the flight, and it was like $30 insurance, and then the same thing, she had to cancel the flight. And they're like, same thing. Like, you got to fucking mail assist. They give you like a list of 5 things that like,
really,
the only way you would have to like, you have to like call the flight back up again, get all this like random information, then like email them to them in 5 separate emails. It was like literally when she was describing to me, I was like, this is insane. And again, it all comes down to it's $30, and the average person, when it comes down to $30, is going to be like, dude, am I really going to take the next full day of my life trying to jump through all these hoops to get $30 back, or do you just blow it off as a loss? And honestly, that's how so many of these companies make money. I mean, they price it at the exact amount that you're like, fuck it.
I don't care. Yeah.
Fuck it.
Yeah.
That flight insurance thing is crazy because like it's supposed to be like for any the idea behind flight insurance is like if you miss it for any reason, you're supposed to be able to rebook.
Oh yeah, that's the other thing. They made her have to like, they were like, submit your reason. We have to review your reason to make sure it is eligible. And I was like, well, you gotta like give them, you have to like prove, you have to give them like a valid, like you can't just be like, yeah, I changed my flight. You have to be like it's a doctor's note at school, like explaining why you didn't show up.
My grandma died, and on the way to the funeral, my aunt died, and then I had to go to the hospital.
My dog ate my ticket.
Died.
Like, what the fuck? Like, it's like, dude, I'm a grown adult. I paid you $30 in case this thing happened, and it happened. Can you take care of it? And they're like, I don't know. I need a doctor's note. I need something. It's like, fuck you,
That's so
dude.
fucking unbelievable.
30 goddamn years old.
Yeah,
Sitting here writing a note.
There's nothing.
My mom's signing it.
Nothing makes me.
I'm dead. Signed Jimmy's mom. Please refund this $30.
Nothing makes me angrier than like just failures of bureaucracy. Like as I get older, I'm just like, what the fuck is happening?
Well,
what is all this shit?
That's what growing up really is. And I think that when they talk about like how your philosophies change from when you're like a young kid in high school and like early college and even late college and even early to mid 20s, how your mindset changes. And really what happens, I think, for most people is you're taught all these things. You go to school, you learn about civics, and you learn about the police, and you learn about hospitals and schools and all these things, and like how everything works and how everything in theory is supposed to work. And then as you get pushed out into the real world, one by one, experience by experience, you slowly start to realize that like all that shit you were told, although it in theory is how it's supposed to work, none of it actually works that way. Yeah. And I think that's kind of like the main thing when people talk about like with communism, for instance, like why so many more younger kids are more on board with this idea of like everybody just does their part and blah, blah, blah. It's like, that's because you haven't lived long enough to understand that when you have anything set up in that way, it takes about 0.4 seconds until somebody takes advantage of it, until somebody has no incentive to actually do their job because they make the same amount of money regardless, and everything goes to shit. You know?
Yeah.
And that's what growing up is. Growing up is understanding that the police are there to take notes after something happens.
Yeah.
That's what fucking happens.
I never do anything.
I watched one of my I don't think I told you about this, but I told Scott about this. This guy that used to work at and like he was always a cool guy to me, blah, 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 blah. But there was like an altercation in the back parking garage. I haven't seen him in years, but like we were all at this bar in Towson and this altercation happened in the parking garage. The same parking garage that years prior I had gotten sent to court for because their card machine was jammed and I couldn't get out. And so I just like lifted the gate. Turns out that the gate broke and it was a $7 part that broke, but the fee for repair was $180. So they sent me to court because I plead not guilty. I was like, dude, fuck that. Like,
there was trapped in a fucking parking.
Yeah, why not pay someone to be here to let me out?
Exactly. So instead of paying someone staffing the place, they put high resolution cameras there just to catch anybody who fucks up. So I went to court, fought it. They charged me with malicious destruction of property, which in order to prove that, you literally have to prove that I went in there with malicious intent to destroy the thing. It's not even just about proving that I broke it. It's about proving that I did it with malicious intent. That's the charge. So like I'm sitting there and be like, clearly I had a reason. Clearly there's like all this other thing. Anyway, I've told the story before. I'm not gonna get into it, but like basically I'm familiar with the fact that they have cameras and all this shit. So like right at the barrier, in fact, the barrier was broken by this fight. So this fight happens. This guy gets like jumped by like a bunch of different people. Winds up getting knocked out, like out cold for like literally 20 seconds. It was scary. And like, you know, so like one of the girls that was there calls the police and the police show up and they're just like, we're just like trying to, this guy's like kind of incoherent, just coming back to, and like his friend is wasted and like just trying to like talk up the situation. Like he was like this big macho guy. Was like, yeah, as soon as I came over, they all scattered. Like I was like, dude, that's not what fucking happened. Like you're not helping anything. And like the dude, you know, on his mark, you know, wasn't even trying to press charges. The dude that got knocked out, because it was kind of like it was a mutual altercation, but it was just like they were jumped by like multiple people. And like I was just, you know, as soon as I saw it happen, I was like, dude, everybody back off. And they all scattered. They fucking knocked over the other parking barrier on that side, leaving in a rush. The other parking barrier on this side was knocked over by the fight. And the cops show up and they're just like, yeah, so you're gonna press charges? And the guy was like, no. And they were like, all right. And then we were like, all right, but like, you know, like blah blah blah. The guy were like, yeah, you know, all the bars are closed. So and Liv was like, wait, are you like we're not trying to go out right now. Like we're trying to like fix this situation. And like these guys just sitting there like, yeah, well, you know, blah blah blah, blah, just get home and blah blah blah. I was like, dude, I'm telling you for a fact, like this is gonna be a thing because, you know, just bring it. I was like, I know they have cameras here. I told you I'm sitting there explaining. I was like, all right, there's only been one car that's left in the past 10 minutes. Between the hours of 1:50 a.m. and 2:05 a.m. blah blah blah. And this guy's just like zoning out. And I'm like, did you get any of that? And he's like, yeah, I got it. I was like, what time did I just say? He was like, well, I was like, I said 1:50 to 2:05 a.m. And then the other cop was like, all right, man, you don't need to get aggressive. I'm like, dude, I'm not trying to get aggressive. I'm trying to help you do your job because I'm telling you, even if he doesn't press charges, this is going to be a thing. He's like, yeah, man, we got it. I'm wearing a body camera, dude. I'm like, you weren't here.
Yeah.
You weren't here. Like you have a body camera of this conversation, and they're just like, well, and I'm like, I'm literally just watching these two dudes just their job is to not do their job.
Yeah. Dude, cops are amazing because like cops, I mean, they do. I obviously do have authority, but like they talk like they're experts on every situation, and they rarely know like the full scope.
What
of
is
anything.
going on?
It's so funny, and it's funny how much like I have people in my family who just like trust cops implicitly. And where I live, so my grandmother lives in Arnold. I think about this all the time. My grandmother lives in Arnold, and when you come up onto her house, it's like this really steep hill down Ritchie Highway, and there's a light that changes kind of quickly from green to red. And she one day she was coming down and it switched to red, and she was already going so fast that she had to like slam on the brakes really fast, and there was a cop behind her, and the cop got upset at her because she slammed on the brakes too hard and he had to slam on his brakes. And so he like, I can't remember when he talked to her. I don't know if he told her to pull over or what, but the cop told her, he goes, hey, the next time that happens, he goes, just go right through the red light because it's much safer to do that than doing what you just did. So my grandmother's like, so now I know, like next time the light turns red and I'm just going to go through it because that cop told me to. I'm like, yeah, that fucking cop told you to. Do you think that he's gonna like let every other cop know? Like, hey, I told this old woman in this sedan to blow through this. It's like
I'm emailing Governor Ritchie as we speak, letting him know.
If you listen to that advice that he gave you just because he was pissed that you hit the brakes too fast, you will get pulled over. You'll for sure get arrested.
You're gonna get T-boned by a fucking car.
Right, even worse. Yeah, you won't get arrested. Like you'll get pulled over, fucking be in a car crash. Like it was like I'm like you can't just listen to that guy because he's a cop. Like,
yeah, and that's the thing. It's like people really do go through their lives like really like looking at these people in positions of authority and truly thinking that there's something magical about this title that makes them like this all-seeing, all-knowing thing. And it's a big issue because we dealt with that with so many different issues, you know, just even the past 2 years. But it's like that mentality of like, oh, this person is this person, so I'm going to trust him. It's a childish mentality.
Yeah, for sure.
When I meet people that think like that, it's immediately the same type of mentality. I call it Santa Claus syndrome because it's this idea that like it's just like, oh, like, or the same way that a kid feels about adults. Like when you're a kid and you look at adults, you're like, oh, adults have it figured out. Adults have this, and it's like then you become an adult, you realize, oh wait, they're just grown-up kids. And it's like the same thing. It's like there are literal full-grown adults that walk around really thinking that this cop and this teacher and every doctor and every therapist and every politician, it's like, no, dude, they're just people with jobs.
Yeah.
And if you don't have the wherewithal to live life by your own terms and understand that we're all just human beings, nobody knows what the fuck is going on. Nobody really knows what the fuck is going on here, like on a broad universal scale. Nobody knows what the fuck is happening.
Yeah, nobody.
We're all just like living it, you know? And if you don't have that mindset, then it's like you're permanently a child. That's, you know.
No, I totally agree. I completely agree.
Jeez Louise. Speaking of positions, I figured we should probably bring it up. Just we've touched upon it before, I guess, but I kind of just wanted to give a brief shout out. I don't know anything about this, and to be quite frank, I don't care. But Queen Elizabeth did die.
Yeah.
Shout out
It's
Queen of
important.
Hearts.
Shout out Queen of Hearts. That's a good nickname for her.
I think she was literally called the Queen of Hearts.
That's
I think.
awesome.
That was like
I
her
don't-
moniker.
I don't know what the Queen does, and I think that's something unique to England or Britain. I guess it's Britain because she's a queen of all of Britain, right?
Yeah, but she's
Yeah.
it's total. It's a figurehead. Like she's not like the like who has the real power in Britain? Is it
The Prime Minister or the
Minister
Parliament?
or Parliament.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But like, it wasn't that long ago that they really still did have power. Like King, like I'm pretty sure like the king during the World Wars was like actively a dude. Like most.
Well, yeah. I think post World War II is where a lot of countries because that's when Japan, post war Japan is when they moved away from like the emperor and stuff.
Yeah.
They moved away from like, well, not feudalism because that was way
That
long
it was
ago.
it was post feudalism, but it was still imperial.
Yeah.
Like the army was literally the Japanese imperial army in World War II. I think so. Yeah, like post World War I and II is when countries moved to the more modern forms of government that we see now.
Yeah, and it's weird just because like I was like looking up because I got kind of interested. It is kind of fascinating that like these people have preserved this bloodline for like thousands of years. That
yeah.
like you could trace every single person back to like people you read in history books like King Louis the Fourth and that a lot of these royal families were connected across countries too. Like they would intermarry like Queen of France or whatever would marry the fucking whatever. And it's like,
Well, like the famous thing is like the King of England, the King of Germany, and the King of Russia were all brothers, right?
Yeah.
I did not know that, but that sounds correct.
It was like what? It was World War I was when that all happened?
Yeah, I think so.
It's fascinating on that level to understand like just how centralized so much of the power being held just in Western civilization is. And then like looking back at like, King George during World War, they had like the men, at least like the kings and the princes had to serve in the military. Like they were like actively like fighter pilots and shit. I don't know if they were really
I
doing
think-
like dangerous missions.
I think that
but,
still
like,
happens. I want to say Prince Andrew served because he claimed
Yeah.
that was part of his defense for talking like when was it Virginia Guffey, was that the woman who accused him? I can't remember.
Yeah.
But she like described how sweaty he was, and he claimed he's like, well, that couldn't be true because I have a condition from my time in the service where I
Can't sweat.
I can't sweat. I no longer sweat under any kind of circumstance.
never sweated.
Oh my god.
Even when I'm on a literal fuck ton of E, I don't sweat.
Shout out Party Prince, dude. And, anyway, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
No.
but yeah.
I wasn't really going anywhere particular with it. I just, I think it's like I've never been that into the royalty thing. I think
no,
a lot
it's
of that.
stupid.
I think a lot of that shit is more for girls in general. I think they get much. I do. I think they get much more fascinated with like, oh my god, she's a princess, and like people cared about Lady Diana, and it's like, look I was 5 at the time, so like maybe I would have cared if I was like 25.
Someone
at the
says
time.
Princess Di is like I don't know. You should never listen to David Icke. David Icke is like this crazy like.
I remember David Icke.
I think he's like a British conspiracy theorist. He's the one who's talked about like the the weird reasons for why the royal bloodline has been kept so pure, talking
Yeah.
about like reptilians and shit. But you've heard the theory that like Princess Di was killed because like
She was like marrying a Saudi prince or some bullshit.
and also she was like speaking out against a lot of people in the royal, like she literally called them the lizards, like
Wow.
people that she called the Duke. Oh god, I'm gonna fuck it up. I can't remember which Duke she called a lizard, but like she would call a bunch of royal family members like lizards and reptilians. and shit.
Wow.
wild is
See,
that?
like those type of conspiracy theories we were talking
I
about
think it was
this.
the Duke of Edinburgh.
We were talking about this like last podcast actually. Surprise, conspiracies. But like those things, like the idea of Princess Diana being like coordinated of some type of like to kill her. That doesn't. The fact that seems so out of the realm of possibility for so many like non-conspiracy minded people. It's like, dude, people conspire to kill random people in their neighborhood on a weekly basis. Like if some guy fucked you over on a drug deal, people conspire to kill
Yeah.
that guy. Like
Yeah.
in Hamden, there was like this abandoned house behind the Giant, and like a bunch of people were squatting in it. and one of the neighbors literally drove their truck into the abandoned house to get it condemned to kick those people out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like,
Well,
people do wild shit.
And now we're talking about
well, dude, it's funny because like the argument that people like the rational argument is like people are like, oh really, you really think that it'd be that neat and like when you talk about people killing people, whether it's like Seth Rich or who's that guy Seth Rich or whatever, the guy who shot
The
himself in the back of the
DC
head
guy
2
or
times,
whatever.
or that guy, the guy who wrote about he wrote that article about like I think it was like the CIA and cocaine or maybe the FBI. I wish Gary
Was that the
Webb.
one with
Gary
like
Webb.
the car like drove him in, like
No,
killed him or some shit?
This was a guy in the 80s or 90s because he was covering like it was specifically like cocaine coming from Mexico. Like I think during the Reagan administration. I think his name was Gary Webb. But the rational argument people always make is like it's like you really think they'd be able to do that and nobody would find out? And it's like, no. People are clearly finding out.
Yeah.
Like it's literally not neat and tidy. There are a bunch of loose ends. That's why people are like, connecting these dots.
But that's what goes back to what we were just talking about like just the incompetence of bureaucracy and the systems and institutions we have in place. It's like when you understand just how much the system actually doesn't work, and then you pair that with the fact that now it's an exponential thing, because now it's like the average person, even for something simple like if somebody crashes into your car and just says, I didn't do it, and the police are like, well, our hands are tied, nothing we can do. He said he didn't do it, so I guess he didn't do it. And then it's like, then you combine that with people who are actually in positions of power who can actually also manipulate how these things are dealt with, and it's like, yeah, it seems very fucking believable that when you combine a bunch of incompetent people in positions of authority with malicious people in positions of power, that they can pull shit off and just get shit done. Like, and then you look at like JFK and like Princess Diana and all these different like covert things. It's like, yeah, if you can, like I said before, if you can conspire a group of guys to kill a drug dealer that fucked him over, then a bunch of people that control the police, that control the law, the legal system, can certainly conspire against somebody who's threatening their billions and billions of dollars of fucking wealth and a state.
It's funny. I think the answer to like how if these things do happen, which I think they do, the way that they know they can get away with it is like, it's the simplest answer of all time. They're just counting on people being too preoccupied with their own lives to do anything, which everybody is. I mean, even, and there has been shit it feels like Jeffrey Epstein was pretty fucking out in the open. There was a Netflix documentary about it. It seems to be a pretty popular opinion that he was involved. He had like multiple ties to multiple intelligence agencies. He clearly was close friends with politicians and Bill Gates, Bill Clinton, all this stuff. But the problem is, nobody has a lot of us people in the middle and below middle class right now. Nobody has enough money or enough resources or even enough free time to like band together and do something about it. That's also kind of fucking scary. Also, like if you have a family, like they're going to take precedence over any kind of like righteous indignation you feel about like an alleged political assassination, right? So that's the only thing they have to count on. The only thing they have to count on is that people will be too preoccupied with their own lives to do anything. I am so sorry. This is the kind of episode we're doing. I thought, is this okay?
It's like every other week.
All right, good. I'm like, should it be funnier?
No, dude.
But
literally last week we talked about
9/11 for like
9/11
hours.
Yeah.
dude, it's funny. My friend Robbie Goodwin, who's a very funny comic, like I don't offhand, like I think honestly, like I think there's. Like I'm probably like what you would consider like a marginal 9/11 truther. Like I'm like similar, like because there have been like similar things. How many incidents have we either like orchestrated or allowed to happen as an excuse to get involved in a foreign war?
Yes.
Where there's resources that we're obviously like very invested in controlling. With where literally we were attacked by like Muslim guys from Afghanistan and we went to Iraq where the fucking oil was. Like it couldn't on its face be shadier.
Yeah,
and
we were talking about the banana republics last week.
Yeah, and
it's
just
like we literally did it for fruit.
And
why wouldn't we do it for oil?
Exactly. And the
CIA
CIA
and heroin. Heroin's the other big
heroin,
one
yeah.
that we don't talk
and
about.
like the CIA working with funding these rebel groups in these other countries and working,
of course,
like,
we get we're doing it right now. I mean, I don't know if it'll have the same outcome with Ukrainians. I really doubt it. But it's so funny that like, we didn't learn the lesson from arming the Mujahideen fighters against the Soviets, and then literally, how many years later? 15 years later, maybe 15 or 20. I'm trying to remember when the Soviet Iranian conflict, Soviet. It was Iran.
Yeah.
When that conflict was, that like, okay, now these same guys
Yeah.
flying planes into New York.
Well, that's what they benefit because the average person, like you said, only has a certain amount of limit they can care, and also
Afghanistan.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I'm so fucking stupid. Afghanistan.
but
When
also
everyone's so short term, no one thinks about long term effects.
and
Like,
also yeah, that's
you fucking wound it up and you forgot that it was gonna start fucking spinning.
well, it's a combination of that and also just the general public. And I mean, this could be a conspiracy or not. This could be purposeful or just another result of just incompetence. But like the general public is not educated enough to understand. Like that's why it is important to understand history. Because if you understand history, then you think about things like the Bay of Pigs incident. You think about things like the Gulf of Tonkin. I'm just saying things. If you ask me to explain all these things out and out, I can't because I'm
It's not about Iran Contra.
Yeah,
I don't know. Isn't that a video game?
But it's funny because it was even a similar thing with Vietnam. You know, part of the reason why we got roped into Vietnam was because France wanted their territory back.
Yeah.
And they were threatening us of like, if you don't help us reclaim this territory that was ours before
Listen,
World
we're
War
trying
II.
to take credit for the banh mi sandwich. And no one can stop us.
They took our fucking bread.
We nailed it in New Orleans.
It would be
We have
goddamn
shitty cuisine.
It would be shitty gook food without our goddamn French bread. But so similarly, we got pressured into that by France because if I'm remembering correctly, France was kind of threatening us with like, you know, if you don't help us reclaim this territory that's ours, then like maybe we'll get friendly with Russia.
Yeah.
You know, the other like world superpower on the rise. So hang on. Oh fuck.
Bless
Do
you.
it. Bless you.
God damn, dude. This is the one thing that I like. My allergies are so much worse on the East Coast. In
Yeah,
LA,
because you're
really,
used to LA shit.
Yeah. Well, everything is a proxy war, and all these things when you hear about, like I've brought up 1,000 times.
Have you played Metal Gear Solid 4?
I have not.
Metal Gear. I don't know if you've ever played Metal Gear. I'm sorry, I hate to
Yeah.
interrupt you, but like
fine.
I was replaying.
2's a good one too.
2
for
is
some
so-
government shit.
Dude, 2 literally, the amazing thing about 2 is that 2 is literally about like digital misinformation and about how like the advent of the internet being available to everyone will cause it's kind of like what we're seeing right now. It's
Yeah.
like I think there's literally a line in it where it's like that, like the rise of unfettered, like the spread of just like uninhibited mass disinformation will literally like, he says something like it will halt humanity's evolution, which is
Yeah.
like literally what's happened. Like,
Yeah.
like, and we're seeing it on such a clear downward. So Metal Gear Solid 2 is amazing because it's basically all about like the internet age and like social media and like it's kind of about like Joe Rogan. It's fucking crazy. And Metal Gear Solid 4 is about a future. I think Metal Gear Solid 4 takes place in like 2008. It came out in 2007. It takes place in like 2015 or 2017 or something.
Wow.
And it's all about how national armies have been dissolved and every conflict is contracted out to private military groups. And it's about how every single war is a proxy war. No weapons can be fired without like digital, like there's like fingerprint scanners on every gun. So like people aren't allowed to own weapons, only PMCs are. And wars are fought as like purely business matters.
PMC being private military
contractors.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so like war is like purely an industry.
Yeah.
It's really, really interesting.
And the thing is, it's like, and I always found this fascinating, even like reading, like when I got in my like big philosophical phase, like in early, like when I was like 19, 20 years old, I got really into reading like Plato, Socrates, like Rene Descartes and stuff like that. And I always found it fascinating that like when you're talking about the cool thing about philosophy is that it's a general, just the way shit works, and it's not time specific. It's just the discussion of human nature and the nature of existence. And those things are so pertinent. Like you could read something that Marcus Aurelius wrote in 400 AD, or read something that Socrates wrote or Plato wrote in like BC times, and all these things are so pertinent and relevant. And it's like, if you take that same thought process and you realize that, like, you go to the Roman Empire, you go to the Greek Empire, the Egyptians, all the Ottomans, the British, like all these empires and what they were doing and all the tactics that they use and how they waged political power for proxy wars and why proxy wars were fought over natural resources and funding certain people. The enemy of my enemy is my friend, and like being like, oh, Greeks, you guys hate the Turkish. They've been ruling you for hundreds of years. Like, we'll fund you guys. That way you can defeat the Ottoman Empire. That way we have the British will fund the Greeks, and that way we can have a easier trade route to India, which we're colonizing. It's like, like when you understand all the history behind it, all that shit and how it works, then you can look at modern day events and be like, oh wait, like it's not some weird divine sense of prophecy that George Orwell was writing the things in 1940 about the year 1984, and like people look at it as like, how could he have known? It's like, how could he have known? Because this shit has been going on for millennia. Well, there's nothing new.
It is really funny how like my big thing that freaks me out right now is like AI. Have you guys followed like that the AI there's like that AI image generator thing that everybody posts now.
Yeah, the Dolly.
And it's there's Dolly Mini and then there's the actual one. And the actual one it's so funny because like 3 months ago people would put shit into Dolly and it would look like mush.
Yeah.
And now they put shit in and it literally looks like a perfect photograph of the thing you described.
Yeah.
And it's like I'm like if only there weren't hundreds of years of literature warning us not to do this.
Yeah.
Because like people are already talking now just like, yeah, we don't really know what's going to happen in 6 months when this stuff is smarter than us. Like we hope we can control it. But it is really, I will just say, you said Marcus Aurelius a couple minutes ago, and I was like, oh, I think I saw him at the Motor House doing 5 minutes. I don't know why. Doesn't that just sound like a black comic?
You're thinking of Dark Marcus Aurelius.
Dark Marcus. Marcus Aurelius.
Darkest Marcus.
Marcus Aurelius sounds like he has an amazing 6 minutes on fucking your bitch from the side. You want to get that bitch on the side so you can see her feet and titties and her face.
The full act out too.
He puts the stool on its side.
He goes down on the ground with the stool.
No, he eats the stool's pussy, dude. He gets ready. I eat that shit like ribs.
The deepfakes are becoming scary, and the other thing is that again, we always walk through life thinking that like we have it figured out, but nobody knows what's happening at the very next moment. Like literally in the next minute, something could happen that changes everything we thought we knew or thought we had planned for the future about anything. And that's kind of like we all kind of exist with this like baseline arrogance, and it's not even arrogance, it's just like assuredness that like what we think is happening, like you know, we talked about with the JFK stuff with like when they lobotomized his sister, and it's like, yeah, at the time,
oh yeah, it's crazy.
At the time, that was the most progressive, like innovative, like that was the science of the day, and they were like, yeah, this is what we do. And then years later we look back and be like, dude, how the fuck did they think that was okay? And now we're looking at the stuff we're doing now with like the deep fakes are scary. Like how good shit is getting at like just like you can just like superimpose somebody's face. It's like it's getting so good that like very near in the future, it's like reality is going to almost be indecipherable from what the fuck is the opposite of reality? Fucking not reality.
Fantasy. Well,
Fantasy.
It's funny. This is where there's like actually an interesting argument for the way China controls the internet in their country. And it's funny. I was even thinking about this. Like, you know that like China created TikTok, right? And TikTok is in China. You're only allowed to be on TikTok for 1 hour a day. They cap it there. But of course, when it comes over here, like it's the biggest thing ever. People are addicted to it. Yeah. It feels like the way like the U.S. would like send drugs to like South American countries to like destabilize them. And so it's funny when it comes to the internet. I'm really torn. This is also an argument that they make in Metal Gear Solid 2. There's like a whole it's great. There's a whole philosophical argument about like whether or not censorship is actually better for humanity because of disinformation. And it applies to real life too. When you look at like how much disinformation and just like general social unrest is a result of the internet and more specifically social media, it's like I don't know, maybe it would be better if we had like a Chinese nanny state, like, you know, censoring how much we're allowed to be online or even what we're allowed to look at. I don't know. That also doesn't feel right.
It does. Well, I would say this.
It goes against like whatever our freedoms are that like we always boast about. But at the same time, like a lot of people need to be fucking reined in.
Dude, I guess, but it's also like, do your freedoms entitle you to this thing that didn't even really exist until 15 years ago, really, and was created to was also created to exploit you and your attention, like you know, like companies like. I guess it's Meta now, but like social media companies, internet
Facebook
companies,
is like they want you to be on there as long as possible.
It's designed to get you addicted. It's like in some ways, it's like you're like, you know, you're like fighting for your, like I said, you're fighting for your right to like do this horrible drug.
Yeah,
and it's like I don't know, but it's weird because I'm also like pro drug legalization.
Yeah, me too.
So maybe my argument doesn't make sense.
Well, it is a tough discussion because it's like, yes, the access to all this misinformation is dangerous. At the same time, the problem you run into when you have, like what you're saying, like a Chinese nanny state is, sure, the idea of controlled information sounds safer until you start thinking about, well, who controls it? Because at that point, then you're dealing with like, look, like inevitably, when you give people the power to control all the information that comes across your desk as a free adult, then you're giving up your ability. Like it almost comes down to which is more dangerous. Like,
yeah, Ryden makes this exact argument in Metal Gear Solid 2. It's really great.
Well, you have to kind of almost kind of accept the chaos. Like understand that like the way nature works is like I've always tried to, like, if I'm trying to think of like how social, it is a very social Darwinist type of thing, because Darwin is of course the guy who's like survival of the fittest, like, and they call it like the free market of ideas and things like that. Like the way nature works is they throw a bunch of different shit at it, and whichever prospers, like whichever, like, oh, let's try a thing with 3 legs, and then if that thing winds up sucking and not being able to mate and reproduce, then like eventually you start finding like, oh, how come every fucking thing has 2 eyes, and how come everything like
so this is it's weird. I don't know if this is gonna make sense. This is just a problem I have every time somebody brings up Darwinism and evolution. I still don't actually understand how evolution and Darwinism works.
So
I understand. Yeah. I understand in theory that like things with more advantageous mutations will survive longer than things that do. But it's not like animals are suddenly born with like a full-on ass mutation. It's something like you have to wait for like generations for like a stub to eventually like, mutate into like a tail or an appendage that gives them an advantage. And wouldn't it just have already been fucking eaten by a predator? You know what I mean? Like I've never understood how enough time was able to pass for the animal to evolve into its advantage without being so similar enough.
Well, animals also, it's not like they just have 1 or 2 kids. They're having
they're having a ton of kids.
Of kids, and then the ones that I don't know.
But here's my question: Why don't
Darwinism was with like the birds, right? Like
Right,
he saw the same birds on 3 different islands, but they looked different because of whatever they were eating, whatever they were hiding from, whatever they were killing.
But why don't we see then? And maybe it has to do with like the way things are bred now. But why don't we see like mutations that we can track in real time over the past like 100 years or whatever? Sorry.
Yeah, that's
on like people,
on people or on animals that like give them a survival advantage. Because like I feel like animals have kind of fucking been the same for like a while now. I'm like, how could this have happened fast enough that they could have like survived the predators that were killing the other animals that were so similar?
Because it's so gradual. I mean, if you think about like just like birds, for instance, like the original theory of Darwinism, and like on the Galapagos Islands, like, if they're on an island where the primary food source is nuts, let's say you take the same bird and you plop that bird on 3 different islands, and on those 3 different islands there's an entirely different food source, there's different predators that exist on that island, right. And so those birds are going to mate and mate and mate. And over the course of thousands of years, thousands of generations, if there's like, let's say on one island, there's like these like big, like fucking hard ass fucking nuts that are like impossible to crack. And like over the course of time, the same bird, like only the birds with like stronger beaks, maybe stubbier beaks, will be able to access more of that food source. And so they wind up prospering a little bit better than the birds with the longer beak. And so they wind up mating. And over the course of time,
oh, I see.
Over the course of time, the birds with, or like for instance, like think
I mean, you see it very quickly with like dog breeding. You know what I mean?
Well, but dog breeding is so fucked up.
Yeah,
but I guess you're right.
But you see it way quicker than in nature.
Yes, because nature is a natural. So
it's about crossbreeding.
It's about crossbreeding.
Well,
it's
like selective breeding almost, but it's natural selection. So like what Jimmy's saying with the beaks, like the long skinny beak, it might be good for getting nectar out of a plant, but on that island, there's no plants like that. They got fucking coconuts, so you need a big guy with a big beak that can crack the shell and eat.
So that's
and if that's the only motherfucker eating, he's the only motherfucker fucking.
Yeah.
So then his genes get passed on.
And that's why that's why incest leads to inbreeding, which is what causes like major genetic, like, defects, is because the natural state of animals that are you're supposed to crossbreed with something that has different genetics with you, and then basically half of your genetics and half of their genetics combined.
You say that, but look at how long these royal motherfuckers live.
That's true.
They live
but
forever.
they're playing it safe. They're doing cousin to cousin. Cousin to cousin, you can make that work for a little bit.
I didn't know that.
You can make that work for a little bit. And like basically the whole idea
They
is
weren't
just,
expecting the empire to last that long.
like think about it. Like this is a taboo subject, but you can see it in human beings how different people from different areas of the world have different physical traits, you know, and like I know
Back
that's
up.
like
What are we
unbelievable, but it's
saying
like
here, dude?
it's like people that like if you descend from like like Scandinavia,
Right.
they have much fairer skin to absorb more sunlight because it's colder up there, and they have blue eyes and different things and stuff like that. Whereas if you go down to Africa, they have dark skin to kind of deflect the sunlight
They
more.
do?
They absorb less vitamin D. Like if they do.
I've never noticed.
Nick, if you ever go to Africa, don't be scared. I'm gonna warn you.
all of when you see different ethnicities of people, nationalities of people, those if you go to that place in the world, their like makeup is specialized for that area. You know, like you can't take a fucking guy from Sweden and just plop him in the middle of fucking Uganda without anything and just expect him, like he's not specialized. But you also couldn't take a guy from Uganda and put him in fucking Switzerland in the winter and expect him to fucking thrive either. It's like our bodies over the course of literally tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of years have been specialized.
But what's interesting is because the theory is that like all life actually originated in Africa, right? Like technically all human beings are from Africa.
Yes.
Yeah.
Which is why Rachel Dolezal didn't do nothing wrong. She was in touch with her roots.
We're all
But it's like,
black.
But it's like how I guess that's what I'm curious about is like so if that's the origin point of humanity, which they say it is, that I mean,
Yeah.
I don't think I'm wrong.
I
about
mean,
that.
No, that's true.
Then like
Southern Africa.
Then how? I want to know how humans evolved. If at one point we were all like whatever but came before humans in Southern Africa, how did we have this many offshoots? Like how did it gradually become all these different races of people with such different characteristics?
So you migrate out, and even within one place, not every Greek guy looks the same. Like you could look at a Greek guy that might be short, stubby, whatever. Like even within one group of people, there's vast genetic differentials. Now, from the outside looking in, that classic joke, black people might say all white people look the same. You might look at all Asians look the same. But like within that group, there's different genetic variances. So as people migrate north, and the climate becomes different, the environment becomes different, then certain people, like maybe like fairer skinned people that migrated from Southern Africa started to fare better in colder climates where naturally they were the ones that started having more offspring. They were the ones that were able to thrive in that environment. So the people that didn't have physical attributes that were suited for that climate, like as they migrate up, then as you spread out, over the course of, again, the thing is, it's like it happens over hundreds of thousands of years. This is not something that.
No, I know. I guess what is really like what I'm actually struggling to wrap my head around is like how the fuck do these motherfuckers even get that far? Like,
Yeah.
and I guess that's just what the amazing thing is because it's
Forrest
just like,
Gump syndrome.
It's
just
full
kept
on,
running.
dude. They just kept running because like literally for me, it's inconceivable. I'm like, because I guess like what I'm really bumping up against is like how was every living human not just like eaten by a fucking just trampled by a woolly mammoth like in one fell swoop?
Well, the ones that were, and that's the other thing. It's like, even think about it in terms of like, we were talking about just like people who can thrive better, but think about like in terms of like predators. Like think about why like in the Amazon, these birds have evolved to like be able to mimic sounds of other things, and like, and like their feathers and like the way that they look can blend in with like that specific environment. Like if you look at a fucking leopard sitting in the brush of the grasslands in Africa, it's like insane that the patterns of why a tiger's stripes exist that way to kind of break apart so you can't actually make out one physical outline. And it's like it is a hard thing to conceive, and I totally understand it, and like trust me, I believe in God and everything like that. And like,
I think I am just really stupid. I think.
No, it's not stupid. I think that people just accept. I think that's important to actually like the problem that I have more than anything, whether you disagree with me or agree with me, is when people just run with a theory because it's just like what they've been made to think.
Yeah, that is my weird. That's my weird thing about like when people and I think I'm like, yeah. What else would it? Because I certainly am not like here being like the answer is intelligent design or like creationism, but like anytime somebody is just like, oh, obviously evolution, I'm like,
because science.
I'm like, yeah, but like, do you
I
even?
fucking love science.
Dude, IFL science. But like people will just like they'll just like again like they'll tout these things, and I'm like, yeah, but do you really know what you're talking about? Really, like,
Yeah, you follow fun facts on Twitter.
I always liked
up.
when Norm Macdonald, I think he was on Larry King, and he was talking about DNA, like, you know, some people just like believe in other things as their religion. And he's like, you know, like in court, they're like, you know, we know that this guy did this because we have his DNA. And Norm Macdonald's like, I don't know what the fuck DNA is. He's like, I don't think I believe in that. and I get what he's saying, because it's like, I don't know. Like, I've been told it's, but I don't know what the fuck it is. Like, not really.
Well, it's no, you have the healthy mindset, and this is going back to our original discussion about, you know, free access of information versus controlled information. Is if, like, for me, I take the route of kind of like going the way nature works, which is understanding that a lot of like fucked up things are going to be introduced. At the same time, a lot of not fucked up and true things are going to be introduced, and what is going to transcend, you know, to the next generation or to the next phase are the things that are most suited. And if you believe that most people, and this is the problem, this really is the ultimate problem when it comes down to this debate. It's the debate between, do you think that the average person has the critical thinking ability to decipher and decide for themselves what is true and what is false? Now, people that support a controlled information state believe that most people are stupid. They don't have the ability to decide things for themselves, and therefore we should have this group of overlords that just tell us how shit's going to be, tell us what's going on, and just leave it at that. And you're not allowed to think anything but what we tell you, and because that's safer for everyone if you just listen to what we say.
Right.
The people that believe in, I guess, humanity would say, look, I understand that if we have this access to all these different ideas, that yes, you're going to have some fringe people that run way off the fucking this way and way off that way. But ultimately, the only way you can have a truly free society with a truly fulfilled existence is the ability to look at all the different sides and understand that if you allow people to have different ideas, that some people will come along and push those ideas just as hard as the people pushing the other ideas. And if you can push your idea in a more convincing way and people go, you know what? This guy's kind of making sense. Right. You know, what happens is when you start telling people that, like, you're not allowed to think this, you're not allowed to say this, first of all, that leads to more unrest. Well, and that's kind of what we're seeing is, like, so much of the unrest that we're seeing, I think, politically, is that I think there is too much of the people being like, oh, no, you can't post that article. Pull that shit off.
Right.
And people get pissed off because ultimately, it's like, just like with the JFK shit or just like with the Princess Diana shit, it's like, ultimately, people don't really care that much, but we still have our ideas. Like, ultimately, the average person is not going to go through the process of really digging deep and finding out what happened with Epstein. We're not going to do that. But we want to feel like we're allowed to think what we think and not be told we're not allowed to think that.
But I might have, let me try to like come to the middle in terms of like the internet censorship argument, because I agree with everything you're saying. I think that like where I would like be more open to seeing some more control online is specifically like in the area of like social media, because I think there's a kind of decent argument to be made that it is destructive to society.
Yes.
And more than anything, it's mentally damaging to kids.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah,
I would like,
sure.
I think maybe a great middle ground might even, because, you know, in China, you're not allowed to I think like before you're 18, you have limited access to what you're allowed to do online and how much time you're allowed to spend on it. And I think that like sites like Facebook, Instagram, I don't know if kids are really on Twitter. I guess they are. TikTok. I think that shit is like not good for mental development. I think it's not good for like self-esteem. I think it's not. I think that it teaches you to interact with the world and other people in like a very like fucked up way. And so like
sorry to cut in,
go
but
ahead.
In China, you basically have like a digital signature for everything you do online.
Right.
And I think what kind of fucks up kids now too is whenever they're online, they're like, nothing is ever going to come back to me. So I'm going to be the worst person possible.
Yeah.
And I can just get away with it.
You know what's funny? I think that was more true for us coming up, because like, dude, I remember like when we came up on the internet,
Oh yeah, you could literally Skype prank call 911.
I would Skype.
I would literally do that.
Dude, I used to Skype prank call Tom Green and drive him fucking crazy. Me and this all of our, we would like, he used to have this internet show and we would call him every day and just try. And now I don't know why I did that. I think Tom Green's so funny, but you know, when we came up online, we were anonymous. We were on forums. I was making little comics out of 16-bit sprites on fucking, you know, video game forums and shit. But then social media, like Facebook, really, the beginning of the end really was Facebook. And now you know, nothing goes away online. Any video you've made, any post you've made, it can all come back to bite you in the ass. And I think either the younger generation is more aware of that, although they post just as recklessly, or what's going to happen is people will just not keep, because everybody will have been so online that it would be hard for employers to hold it against you.
Yeah, and it's like, dude, it becomes a thing where it's like you see all the worst of me, I see all the worst of you, and it's like, but like I think you're right. Like social media, maybe not Facebook. I would even go as far back as to say MySpace might have been the beginning of the end, because that was really the first like mainstream social media platform. And I think the big switch there was your internet life became real, because what you're describing when you're like anonymously Skype prank calling people and like doing random shit like that, like you'd go on forums and you go on different websites like bestscore.com and fucking funnyjunk.com, and like it was all this anonymous thing where it's like your fucking username is like buttfuck3000, you're just saying stupid shit, and like it's all just this other dimension domain that you're, but now internet is real life, like it's tied into your reality.
Yeah.
And it's like melded into that now, and I think that's the big thing.
MySpace is an interesting one, because you're right. MySpace had what, like the top 8 or whatever? It was the top 10, top 8. And that was, I think, probably the first time you could publicly quantify how close you were with people. You know what I mean? Like, because that wasn't really, you know, you used to assume like prior to that, like, oh, you're friends with people, your connection was, you know, probably somewhat subjective, but you could now for the first time be like, oh shit, I thought we were way better friends, and it turns out I'm not even in our top 8. And now to like, you take that to the next level with Instagram, where like, you know, I remember like feeling like unpopular and getting depressed about it in school. But now if you're on Instagram as a kid and you're not happy, you're not doing well, and then you see kids who are popular and they're on Instagram and they have way more followers and get way more likes than you can literally quantify how badly you're doing socially.
Yeah.
Like there's a number that you can look at to be like, wow, I really suck. This makes me feel really bad. And that's not good.
Yeah,
that's really not
true.
good.
Well, I would agree with you on this. I think that I wouldn't be opposed, because I kind of feel like we have the same ideas about drugs and stuff like that. Like I've always been a proponent of, and I know this is I know this is considered like a hot take. I genuinely have never heard a very truly convincing argument as to why drugs just shouldn't be legal.
Oh yeah, totally.
And I mean all drugs. And like, and like I think that, but at the same time, that comes with the condition that we demarcate as a society when you're an adult and when you're not. And once you're an adult, I think that you should have all the freedoms of an adult. I don't see any reason why I, as a grown man, can't make decisions for myself if I want to do cocaine, if I want to do heroin, if I want to pop pills, why that should land me in jail for 10, 20 years and stuff like that. Like, yes, it's going to fuck up my life, and that's my punishment for doing it. But like, why also am I also getting that paired with getting told like, no, you're not allowed to do that, grown human being. You're not allowed to do that because another grown human being says you can't. It's like, wait, you're just another adult. Why are you putting me in jail for my lifestyle choices? Like, I'll fuck up my life on my own, dude. Leave me the fuck alone. But it's like with the internet, I wouldn't be opposed to if we started treating the internet like a controlled substance, in that we are like, look, when under the age of 18, you're allowed this much access to social media. Once you're an adult, you can fucking browse Instagram all fucking day, baby. You can fucking sit there and worry about who's in your top 8 and worry about how many likes you're getting. You're fucking 30 years old. You should be worried about other shit. But hey, you know what? If that's what you want to do, do it. But when you're a kid, I wouldn't have a problem. I don't have a problem with treating children like children. I have a problem with treating adults like children. If you're a child, then yes, if the government wanted to say, look, TikTok is fucking with kids' heads. Social media in general is fucking with kids' heads. We need to put something in place that limits the amount of access, because the problem is, it's like, even if you're a kid who doesn't want to be that kid who's all online all the fucking time, even if you're not that kid, you still, the only way you can actually participate socially is by immersing yourself in that environment, because everyone else in your social circle is on it. So you kind of don't have a choice. It's kind of equivalated to the idea of like when we were growing up, like the kids that didn't have a TV in their house. And it was like, I saw what those parents were trying to do. Like, hey, I want you to like read books, blah, blah, blah. But at the same time, it's like, okay, so now you're in 5th grade and like all your friends are talking about Pokemon and you're sitting there like, what's a Pikachu? And it's like, nobody wants to hang out with that kid.
It's it's complicated. I have that thought too, but it is complicated because like I'm like if I have kids, I don't know if you've ever been on like YouTube Kids, but it is like it's fucking crazy.
Oh, all the
like,
time,
like,
baby.
Like the way kids are like exposed to like iPads like immediately, like and their attention spans are like this sounds like moral panic, but like kids' attention spans are fucked, and YouTube videos are designed. It's like it's not even. The input is not good. It's literally just overstimulation to keep their attention because the people making these videos, the only thing they're concerned about is getting the views to go up and getting their engagement to go up because this is a money-making machine for them.
Yes.
And so it's very, it's predatory, honestly. It's like exploitative, it's predatory. It's not good for kids to have. So like, I would like to think that when I have kids, I'll control, like, I don't think I would ever control content. I think I'd be fine with like my kids watching like PG-13 R-rated movies as long as I think like you'll get something good out of this. I am more concerned about them watching shit that is just designed to dominate their attention span and kind of ruin them a little bit. But I know what the problem is exactly what you said. They're going to go to school and they're going to be talking about fucking obscure ass shit that I show them, and their friends are going to be like, "What? I watch Coco Melon. What the fuck are you talking about?"
Well,
and I don't know what the right thing to do is because I've seen Coco Melon and it's definitely not good for your brain. It's definitely fucked up, dude.
Well, I think that's kind of the happy medium, and I think we're kind of zeroing in on it is, at least from my perspective, I understand the dangers of social media. I understand just everything that goes into it. And I think that what is unique about our generation is that we existed in a time before it. And therefore, we have slightly more of a baseline to understand reality from this augmented like internet existence.
I think truly like us growing up pre-social media is as big of a leap as people who grew up at the turn of the century prior to the mass-produced automobile. It has changed the world.
I would say
that
yes.
much.
Yeah.
It's like the biggest revolution since the fucking car.
Yeah,
Like seriously.
I think social media and the internet have probably created more jobs than any government on the face of the planet.
Completely.
Like there's you can literally be a billionaire by playing video games on a webcam.
Yeah. And that's
insane.
a beautiful thing because what the internet, the goods of the internet, we've been trashing the internet, but ultimately, like as a person, like we all are people, a content creator, like it opens up the door for you to not have to sign on to some other like record company if you're a band or some agency if you're a comic or an actor. It's like you can do your own thing and put it out there, and if people like it, they like it.
Yes and no though. There's a double-edged sword to this, and it's something that I see a lot, especially like living in LA and seeing how contracts and deals are changing, especially in the age of streaming. The democratization of content is good.
Another great word.
It's good and bad because there were by the way, some great benefits to the monoculture. The culture when we had the monoculture, like prior to all these different avenues for watching stuff, cultural conversation, people were more connected. There's like a cool cultural thing when like everybody's tuning in to like.
It was like you had to be there.
You had to be there moment, or like everybody was into the Beatles, everybody watched the Ed Sullivan Show, all that shit. And so one of the benefits, kind of what you were saying, the democratization of content is like, well, now there's no gatekeeper. If you really want to do it, you can do it on your own, and you can probably find an audience, and there's a chance that you could make good money doing it. But at the same time, you most likely won't. You'll most likely be putting out a lot of content, and it's now expected that you'll put out a lot of content for free. That doesn't generate you any money, but it generates a lot of money for Instagram Reels and YouTube Reels, whatever the fuck these things. Like Instagram is really pushing Reels right now. That's really good for them.
Totally.
And to be a comedian now, if you're not uploading a Reel every day, and a lot of people upload Reels where it's like, it's not even a fucking joke. They upload like a 10-second reel of them bombing, but people don't watch it with the sound on. So as long as like the subtitles are on, the algorithm will push you.
Traffic, yeah.
It's where I get really frustrated because you're expected to upload all of this free work. You see virtually no benefit from it. If you don't do it, you're not even in the fucking race anymore. This isn't just true for comedians. This is true for anybody who wants to use the internet to like push.
It's like, what you're talking about is like, when Twitter first started and comedians were like fighting, like, oh, I gotta fucking post tweets every day. You tell me I gotta be relevant by I gotta tweet every day. And it's like, yeah, you actually do. You gotta do that now.
It honestly kind of sucks. And so the other point I was gonna make is you used to get there used to be, if you did get selected, like tapped by the industry, the money used to be better too. You used to be guaranteed more things. Residuals were better, especially in the age of the monoculture. In the age of streaming, you get paid once, and then you're promised, like, there's no percentage points in your contract. You don't have any options, nothing like that. You don't get any like rerun money, no licensing money. You get paid fucking once. That's why all these actors who were on Euphoria, a lot of them worked mainly in Netflix prior to being on Euphoria. And I think like 3 of them have come out about like, oh yeah, I was like living in a hotel. I was living in my car. I couldn't make any money because you get paid flat. When you do anything that's streaming related, you get paid the flat fee, and that's all the fucking money you see. Now the company sees a bunch of money. Like it happened. The Squid Game guy talked about this.
Yeah,
it was the most watched show on Netflix for how many weeks? A month. He's like, I only got paid the fee to write the script. I haven't seen any returns from it being the #1 show on Netflix.
Jeez.
So this is where like there are things that are good about the new age of content, and things that actually kind of really fuck the creators and the people at the bottom. But of course, it's very beneficial to the companies that own the streaming sites.
But the thing is, I will say, just from a music perspective, you are correct that, but at the same time, it's always been like that. Like, it's always been that most people that are attempting to do shit don't succeed. Like, if you grew up in the 60s and 70s and you were in a band, the overwhelming odds were you were not going to be a successful band.
For sure.
You were going to work your ass off. You were going to play a bunch of places. And ultimately, at some point, you were just going to be like, fuck it. Like, we're too old now. No record company is going to sign a fucking 30-year-old when they could sign a 21-year-old and get 10 more years out of him.
But the difference is, if you fail, I'm sorry, I hate to cut you off.
No,
my girlfriend's a musician, and so we have a lot of conversations about this. So an example I'll use is Spotify, right? So now let's say you could be a nothing band in the 70s and you're not going to make it, but you take that same nothing band and you take them to 2020 and they put out a song, and maybe they don't get signed to a record label, but you're like, oh, well, but now there's a chance for a lot of people to hear your music. You could have a song pop off on Spotify or pop off on TikTok.
Yes.
That doesn't mean you're going to get a record deal. It doesn't mean you're going to see a lot of money from those Spotify plays, because Spotify doesn't pay artists shit.
Yeah.
But Spotify profits from your song getting plays and getting clicks.
yes.
So that's the part that makes me fucking angry.
But-
that's it's not the same as not making it, because you're not making it and somebody's still making money off your failure.
But the case for music, at least, has always been that musicians, unless they were selling millions and millions of albums, even if they were, I mean, you could watch these documentaries of like the Backstreet Boys and NSYNC, who actually I believe had the same manager, I'm pretty sure, or like tangentially or something like that. And like there was a point when they were like the #1 and 2 music acts in the country in the late 90s, early 2000s, and they were getting checks for like $10,000. Like for a fucking like 3, 4, 5 month, 6 month stretch. And like it's always been the case that, first of all, the whole idea of a record deal has always been like, when people talk about like, oh, I got a deal, that's a loan. If you get $1 million record deal, that's $1 million loan. You don't see a fucking cent of that $1 million until you pay back that $1 million, and then you start seeing profit. So it's always been the case that record companies have found a way that like they're going to get the biggest piece of the pie from anything you do. And the primary mode of profit for musical artists, at least, has always been live performances. And then
now they're even taking that.
Yeah, with the 360 deals, now they found a way, because they realize that album sales aren't where it's at, because most people aren't fucking buying physical albums.
It's
They're
all
streaming
merch
shit
now. So then they're like, oh, well, we get 50% of that too.
So now every artist is like a physical like brand entity, and they get a percentage of your live performance profits. They get a percentage, like you said, merch and everything like that. So the record companies are always finding a way to get the biggest piece of the pie from you. What the internet has done is open up an avenue for independent artists to, yes, you're going to get streams on Spotify. That's not where you're going to see your slice of cake. That's not where it's going to be. But If you can get millions and millions of streams on Spotify, sure, you might only be seeing a $200, $300, $400 check every month. Great. But you also have millions and millions of people who are into your shit and will come see you when you come out to Cleveland. And that's where you make your money. And so it's like the internet has provided a space, and these streaming platforms, of course, they're always going to get their cut.
Sure.
What it has opened up for is for you to get yourself out there in a way that now...
You still don't have... some people don't even have the means to, like, you know, the apparatus to even, like, let's say you release something, you get millions of streams. It's not then so, like, it's not as easy as, like, okay, well, now we just tour.
Yeah.
Some people don't even have the means to start touring after that. You know what I mean? At least if you garnered attention, and I understand there's lots of ways you get fucked by record contracts. If you garnered attention in the old model, there would at least then be an apparatus provided for you to get you in front of people. Some kind of infrastructure to be like, all right, well, then you're going to tour with these people. We're going to set up these dates. You'll have this.
Yeah, we're
going to
send your single to every radio station across the country.
Right, yeah.
Which we pay, so then they'll play it. And
so I guess essentially, I don't think one. You're right. I don't think one is better than the other, but I can't help but feel there's something kind of nefarious about Spotify knowing we can fuck people out of money and they'll fail and they'll end their careers. And the minute one artist drops off Spotify, there are 100 more waiting to line up and generate streams for us.
And that's the gatekeeper thing.
Well, and that's the thing too. Sorry to cut you off, Jimmy, but Spotify is also now creating their own music, and they're just putting it in their top playlists.
Are they
so
really?
that they get it's a closed loop now.
What?
Like
That's fucking crazy.
So yeah, I watched a video about it. So like, you know, all these like music licensing websites for like videos, like I don't know, they're like plugged a lot on videos as like ads or whatever, but I use them for work. There's one called like Artlist.
Yeah.
There's like, and it's basically just stock music websites. And for the most part, like those websites have musicians, they pay to be on retainer, and then they just pump out music upon music upon music.
Right.
And then they get paid whatever, a flat fee or for making the music that can be licensed out. But now Spotify is basically like contracting these for hire musicians to make stock music that they put in playlists that Spotify in like an umbrella company owns the rights to it, and they'll just push their own artists into the loop to get those free plays and then just cycle back money.
And what you just said, it goes back to what I was saying before. The thing that bothers me the most about streaming is the flat fee payment, and that's it. And it's true for video content, it's true for music. The fact that they're still it's the dominant way that people consume shit now, and they have not figured out legally how to quantify what you are owed if you have the most popular piece of media on a streaming site. And it doesn't seem like they're going to. It needs to be figured out. It needs, because it's a huge amount of money that people used to make when they were creative that they're just not making anymore. That's going straight to the parent companies, and that's a problem, I think.
Well, here's the I guess a potential solution is going back to our overarching theme here, which is the freedom to like exist outside of that, which is like if Spotify gets to a point where enough people go, dude, this is bullshit, we should be getting more, then you start seeing things like Tidal and things like that pop up. And I know like at the time you're like, yeah, but like blah, 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 blah. But like you kind of see that shit happening like when, what the fuck was that app that was supposed to be like the free speech app counterpart to Twitter?
Oh, Parler.
And
Yeah,
then you
huge
saw,
success.
so like there was always this mantra of like, you know, people were pissed off at Twitter because like they weren't allowed to tweet things that they believe because Twitter would censor it. And so people would be like,
but like the shit they weren't allowed to tweet was just like racist
Yeah,
shit.
Parler was. It's funny. I had
some of it, but
I had
not
a Parler account to check it out, and it was so wild. It was fucking crazy.
It's like next door for the Ku Klux Klan.
Okay, but okay. Yes. Look, I understand that like yes, when you marginalize a certain group of people, that like obviously a significant portion of that is going to be that stuff. At the same time, you know, a lot of stuff was being censored off Twitter that was not like that. That like, I mean, like the greatest example, and I'm not even trying to get political, but like a perfect example of like a mainstream censorship was that whole like Hunter Biden laptop situation where the New York Post posts it and Twitter fucking takes it down. And people, that really like ticked people off because they're like, dude, this isn't racist. This isn't white supremacist. This isn't hateful. This isn't anything other than us putting out information that would harm a potential political candidate on the side that seems to be the side that all of mainstream media and stuff like that is on the side of. So like then people go like, well, okay, so now it's like it's easy to just cast off that like anybody who has this like angle at looking at things is like, oh, well, yeah, well, obviously Pollard was just going to be this like crazy fringe white supremacist neo-Nazi website, but it's like not really. Like, yes, there's going to be that shit on there, but that's not really what most people gravitate to. The average person just wants access to like, okay, well, I want to be able to see this side of it. I want to be able to see this side of it. And so like what happens? Then a potential competitor gets launched. It's the #1 most downloaded app of that week on fucking the Play Store and Apple. Yeah, it was the #1 most. That's not all neo-Nazis, okay? I'm sorry. Right. There's not that many fucking neo-Nazis in the country and in the world that it becomes the #1 most popular app the week it's launched. That's people who just want to... And then what happens? They take it off the Play Store. Then the fucking websites, which what does Amazon own? Like fucking like 80% of all website servers and shit like that. They say we're not even going to host it on a server. So now you can't even have a website. Not only can you not host your app on our fucking app store, but now you can't even have a website on the internet unless you go to some other fucking random server in fucking Sri Lanka and host it. And it's like, at that point, it's like, okay, so now we're talking about like, yes, there's this whole mantra of like, oh, if you don't like Twitter, create your own Twitter. And it's like, okay, we will. And then they go, actually, no, you can't do that either. You can only have what we say you have. And when you only have what we can say you have, then you can only say what we can say you can say.
So I feel like this is... kind of an argument to my point, then, which is like,
perhaps
I don't know. Maybe we've gotten too in the weeds.
I don't know who I'm arguing with.
I think we've gotten.
Jimmy's just a dog in a corner right now, fucking fighting.
I guess that my original point was like the democratization of content and content being in your hands for you to be in control of it. It isn't real. That's kind of my point. Like you're kind of still getting fucked by big companies, and maybe even more than you were. Well, it depends, because you're right. There's more opportunities to have actual people hear your shit. But if you would have been successful under both models, I think you're likely to make less money under this model. That's kind of my point.
Yes,
is that you're still kind of getting.
And
fucked.
I think your point.
Well, there's just so many more middlemen that have inserted themselves into the system now.
The more human, I agree with your point. I agree with both your points. Honestly, I do. My thing is, the more people try to control shit, the more it gets fucked up. And so the war on drugs is a perfect example of that. Like, we as a society have a moral thing where we don't want to see people being addicted to drugs, blah, 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 blah. We don't want to see people fucking up their lives. So we then make it this war on drugs. And now we're going to put all of our most incompetent bureaucrats in charge of fucking imposing all these insane drug laws that are incarcerating people for weed and fucking possession of schedule, like whatever, narcotics or whatever. It's like, okay, so now these people are in jail, and now you're overloading the prison system with all these non-violent offenders that are just sitting in prison because we as a society decided like, no, this is how we wish shit was. And so now we're just going to institute all these policies and fuck shit up even more. And it's like, probably a better solution would be just being like, you know what? Instead of incarcerating people for having addictions and things like that, what if we can, as a society, uphold the idea that drugs probably aren't the best decision for your life, but also you're not a criminal if you decide to go down that route.
Yeah, for sure.
And then what happens is like, you're probably going to see the same amount of people on drugs. Like, if heroin was made legal tomorrow, I'm not going to start shooting up under the fucking bridge downtown, Red Hot Chili Pepper style. I'm not doing that shit. Like the average, you can't.
If you want it, you'll get it.
If you want it, you get it. I've never met a person in my life who was stopped from getting coke because they suddenly realized it was illegal.
Right.
Oh shit! You mean this is illegal? Oh fuck.
Yeah.
No.
I've never seen somebody expel cocaine.
Yeah, it doesn't happen. So like, I guess to draw that metaphor out, it's like, look, you're not going to stop people from thinking the things they think. All you can do is just okay. So going back to David Icke, this is a good example. I think going way back. David Icke is a perfect example of somebody who. Because I remember, like, my Uncle Phil was, like, a crazy conspiracist guy. And this is back in, like, the old days, like, the 90s.
That is who gets you into David Ike, by the way.
Your Uncle Phil. Your Uncle Phil. Sure. Trust me. Yes.
It'd be so funny if it was Will Smith's Uncle Phil.
Yeah.
Well, they're lizards, Will.
What have I told you about gallivanting with reptilians, Will?
Cha-ching! No. So, like, I remember being a kid, and, like, Uncle Phil would give my dad these video cassettes of David Icke videos, and you're watching it, and he's going through.
He had
This is
tapes,
so awesome, dude.
You're going through. He's taking you through, like, the Texaco
It's a
logo.
David Icke workout video. Anyway, sorry, go on.
And like, so like you're watching it, and here's the crazy thing, and it almost is enough to make you think what they call controlled opposition, because so much of the shit, and I even saw a recent video of him. He did like an interview about like, I think this is like 2 years ago, was the last time I heard from him, and he was doing something about COVID and stuff like that, and like you're listening, you're like, this checks out. Like okay, go on. And then always, it's almost like clockwork. He goes off in this completely crazy direction where it's like, okay, I just watched an hour-long video of you being like, yo, blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, damn, I never thought about it that way. And at the end, he's like, and that's why fucking Queen Elizabeth is an alligator. And you're like,
Yep.
oh,
Shapeshifters.
fuck, man, you fucked up everything. Like, everything sounded so right and like was so on point. And so, there's a part of me that almost has to think like, is that on purpose? Because like you have these people out there that are saying like shit that's like, damn, that could be fucking true. Okay, boom, 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 boom.
Right.
And then they completely invalidate it and discredit it with this like one-off like crazy theory that they have that makes you question everything you just heard.
Well, you know what's so funny though? We say that, and then I just want to recall however many years ago it was where we were making fun of Alex Jones for talking about how
Sex cults.
how water was turning the frogs gay, and then that girl,
Yeah,
what was
that
her
girl
name, Michaela?
wandered into
She
our
was like-
podcast.
She wandered in. She was like, "Yeah, I was just the college learning about how chemicals in the water are causing frogs to be gay."
Yeah.
And we were like, "What the fuck?"
Yeah.
Oh, I was too sweet on that,
That was
young woman, dude.
one of the best nights ever.
That was
It
great.
That was so
unbelievable.
good.
Great
I was
episode.
like, I think I might marry this blonde girl from Southern Maryland. This girl with literally half a brain. Like, oh,
No,
Michaela. I remember
Yeah.
Michaela.
Yeah.
I think I remember her last
She
name.
was drinking that frog water.
Oh, she was definitely drinking that for all
I would have
water,
drank
baby.
all kinds of dude. I would have gone frog gay for Michaela.
Look, dude, I think ultimately, just sum it up, I guess. You know, we exist in this time right now that is we're in the middle of it. There's no answer. Nobody knows what's happening next.
of course not, yeah.
The best thing you can do, in my opinion, is to allow people to figure it out. When you take away people's ability to think for themselves and figure it out, then you give that power to someone else who can use it to their own benefit. You don't want to live in China. As great as it sounds, as much as people want to
As much
fucking...
as the food bangs.
As much as we all love Kung Pao chicken.
The food literally bangs, dude.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's so good.
But you don't...
I just had minced beef on rice with a tea egg.
Ooh.
A tea egg?
An egg that
A
is
century egg?
no,
Poached
no, no,
in
no, no.
tea?
No, a century.
That's
dude,
the P one,
My
right?
my girlfriend is yeah. Do you know that too? People
Yeah.
in Thailand call my girlfriend is from Taiwan, and she won't even eat the fucking 1,000 years egg. It's the egg
Yeah.
that still has the embryo in it. And in Laos and Thailand, they call the egg, it's the same dish, but they call it the horse piss egg. And it's so funny because, like, I just imagine, like, a Laotian person, like, taking a bite and be like, oh, you know what other delicious thing this reminds me of? A big frothy cup of horse piss.
Very unappetizing.
But I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you, Jimmy.
No, it's all good. I mean, I was just trying to like put a nice bow on everything. Is like, I think that I just look throughout history. I can't think of a single time, because look, as much as I say that we exist in this time now that's like unforeseen and unprecedented, in a lot of ways it is precedented. I mean, like the printing press was a humongous development for like the mass production, and even like the idea of like books. Like, you know, for the majority of human history, you couldn't get a book unless you were rich enough to literally get a guy to sit down with a feather pen and a pot of ink and write the book out for you so that you could have a copy. Dude. And so the access to information, this is not the first time that we've leveled up in terms of like, you know, how long did it take before the average person had access to the Bible? And before then, it was all up to the Catholic Church or whoever was in power at the time to be like, all right, we have the one Bible in the town, and you're going to have to take my word for it. But this, I'm pretty sure it says that...
It's also in Latin, so like... Only I can read it.
Yeah, so to be honest, I'm not even completely sure what it says, but I'm pretty sure it says like you owe me like 10% of your income like all the time.
That's also, by the way, that's still...
I can definitely fuck your wife. I can fuck your wife and your son.
That is, by the way, that's still how people basically treat the Bible. Like most people who go to church like do not read the Bible. They just
for sure.
To, like the pastor or the priest.
But like there's not ever been a point in time when controlled access to information has wound up good. I can't think of a single time.
I think you're totally... I definitely agree. I definitely overall agree. It is just a... Like anything else, it's just not a cut and dry issue. It's a can of worms.
Yeah.
You know?
For sure.
Fucking... A can of worms.
That's the name of the episode.
That's the
This
name.
definitely
Truly.
was a can of worms.
It was a can of worms, buddy.
This was all over the place.
Rest in peace, Queen Elizabeth II. And shouts out, might I say, I never thought I'd say this in my life, but the King of England, is there anything cooler? Like,
right, there's a king.
There's a
king
king
now. Yeah.
There has not been a real like King of England since 1952.
It's so funny because Queen Elizabeth's husband... Was he king or he was just prince, I think?
He's called Prince Consort or King Consort. So basically, I did a little bit of, not a deep dive. I did a little doggy paddle dive the other day on Wikipedia just because I was curious. Because I've always wondered. I was like, why is her husband not the king?
Right.
Because
it's complicated.
it just sounds... What it is only the blood heir can assume the title of king or queen. Their husband or wife is
married into it.
So Queen Elizabeth was the next in line after her father died.
So the only way there could be a true king and queen is if they were brother and sister?
I believe so.
Cousin, maybe?
Maybe.
I think technically the term is like queen, like if you're a king and Prince or King Charles's wife would be the queen consort. But there's like an understanding that the distinction there is because only like King Charles's firstborn is the only person that can assume the next role of king or queen, and then if they die or if they abdicate the throne, then the next in line would be
what
the next
happens
one.
if what happens if like King Charles is like dick falls off or like he can't have kids or something? I guess he has kids.
I think
Queen,
that's
I
a
guess.
situation. Yeah, I mean, all these things have happened throughout history, and like there's certainly been times when like they've been appointed. Like for instance, Marcus Aurelius, who we brought up earlier, he was actually adopted by his father, who could not have children or might have been gay. But one of the two, either way, he wasn't having kids, and he actually adopted Marcus Aurelius, who was a slave.
Marcus Aurelius was wild, dude. He would fuck the throne. He would get up there, he would do 10
yeah,
minutes
from the
fucking
side.
throne,
Yeah,
fucking
he was
the throne.
great, dude.
He's like,
dude, you got a great act. Come up here and be Caesar.
Marcus Aurelius was black, right? Was he actually black?
I think we've been watching too much fucking.
Why did I think Marcus Aurelius was black? I literally, in my head, like I was joking he's a black comic, but I literally am thinking of Marcus Aurelius as like a. I don't know.
was definitely a Roman guy.
No way.
But yeah, he was not a blood heir, but he
okay.
was adopted and he was appointed because the guy who was in power appointed him, and then Marcus had a son named Commodus or something who wound up being the worst emperor of all time and was insane. And you can watch the movie Gladiator.
That's
he's
right.
Played
That's
by
right.
Joaquin Phoenix, and you know they do a decent job of interpreting just how bad this guy was. But he
How
was just,
motherfucking heavy is the head that wear the crown, y'all? How is that big ass bum foo head gonna wear that fucking
Cat
ass
Williams.
crown? Yeah. How heavy is this motherfucking crown, y'all?
I always used to say it's the coolest title to be like, dude, call me the fucking president. Like, dude, I'm the fucking president. Dude, is there any like bigger flex than to be like, it's the one guy, it's like, dude, I'm the fucking king of England. Like, we exist in a time now and we forget kings and queens are things.
Oh, yeah.
But when you're the king of England, like I said, dude, our parents and us have never existed in a time when there's been a fucking king of England. That's a crazy title.
Right.
Awesome.
Completely.
Sounds awesome. Like, you literally was a king. You were the only person in the world who could say that.
That was Marcus Aurelius said that a lot.
I believe he did.
Marcus Aurelius was the first guy to say we was gay.
You know what? Maybe he was black now I think
Yeah,
about it.
Marcus Aurelius was
This
black.
ain't
for sure,
checkers,
dude.
this chess.
So shouts out Queen Liz.
Yeah.
Yeah. Shouts out Nik Oldershaw. Thanks for coming on the
Yes.
podcast.
Oh my god, this was so much fun, guys. If you can, I think because I know this is going to go on your feed, but I would love to cross post this.
Let's cross post it,
Yeah,
baby.
fucking do it up, dude.
So send me the MP3
We'll send you the MP3.
and
baby.
At Jimmy Selesky, at Eric Glazer, at Sophomore MD, at LFTS Podcast on everything.
Everything. At Nik Oldershaw.
at Nik Oldershaw on Twitter and Instagram. At Doomscrollcast on. I think Doomscroll Pod is Instagram, Doomscrollcast is Twitter. Either just switch those, you'll find them. We have a Patreon, we have a Discord, we have a fucking subreddit. So go check those out. They're super fun. And yeah, if you're in Maryland, if you're listening to this in Maryland, which I would imagine some listeners are, I will be doing a show on the 24th. Umar Khan is headlining. Can't remember the time or the venue, but if you look on my Instagram, you'll see it there. And then October 8th, I will be at the Auto Bar with the Young Guns podcast, which is Robbie Goodwin and Mike Figs. And then we also have, it's going to be a stand-up show of me, Robbie Goodwin, Mike Figs, Lemaire Lee from Matt and Shane, and then Joe Gorman from Loud Boys and Locker Room Talk. It's an all-male lineup. You will never see one again in your life. Come out and get canceled with us.
Let's do it,
We'll have
baby.
a lot of fun.
Guys, till next week.
Peace.